You are happy to let them fucking rot in Indonesian detention centers where they have no
Yeah,
future, no asylum, no processing.
I'm
Kill
Muslim
yourself,
refugee.
you fucking prick.
No.
Jesus Christ.
Oh,
Okay.
you're fucking retarded. You're actually mentally ill. It's
Okay.
not my
I
responsibility.
don't know why
in
you're
Australia.
lying to...
Hold on. Oh, thank you, Drew.
See, it's
for
not like that in
coming
the UK, though. In the UK, everyone sees themselves as kind of liberal. Even like the Tommy Robinson calls himself liberal. You know, Sargon calls himself liberal because just because it's like our legacy.
Sargon
the
doesn't call
Churchill
himself
World War II
liberal
thing.
anymore.
Oh,
No, I don't believe so. But
does he say centrist still?
I don't know if he calls himself a centrist, but he's basically kind of rejected liberal values and saying that they couldn't.
Sorry, guys. There's some kind of mess up with my
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Sorry
We can
about that,
see
guys.
you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear. Say something. Say something.
Testing. Is this okay?
It's okay to me. Can you hear him, Loner?
Yeah, a little quiet, but I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. That was frustrating. Sorry about that.
Okay, we are here. We're ready. So without further ado, let's just get started. Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, we've got a show for you today. Tonight we're going to be talking about Reform UK and the migrant crisis. Is Reform UK the solution to Britain's problems regarding immigrants? Are there even real problems regarding immigrants, or is this all just overblown? We have two wonderful gentlemen tonight to debate this, to talk about it. I'm going to give the mic first to Mr. Drew Pavlo to state his case, be brief, try to stay under a minute, and then we're going to let Lonerbox respond, and then we'll get to the back and forth. Go ahead, Drew.
Perhaps Lonerbox can start just because I'm still getting my bearings a bit because I just jumped in the call.
Okay, Lonerbox, go ahead.
Thank you.
Why is Reform UK going to destroy Britain, in your opinion?
Okay, so I think it's a pretty simple story. It's a story about someone who is more or less making a total political killing off of his own failures. In around 2015-16, up to the Brexit campaign, Nigel Farage put out a billboard of himself standing in front of a picture of a throng of Syrian, North African, Arab Muslim refugees, and saying that this is why we need to get out of the EU. They're coming, basically, during the Syrian refugee crisis. The fact is that most immigrants, the overwhelming majority of them coming to the UK at that time, were not Syrian. They were not North African. They weren't even outside of the EU. They were mostly EU migrants. He still managed to harness that fear, the fear of, that went alongside the Bataclan attacks, the rise of ISIS, the Syrian refugee crisis, and he managed to use that fear to convince people that Brexit was the answer to people's fears. Most people who voted for Brexit in that campaign thought immigration was the biggest problem. It was the biggest reason that people voted to come out of the European Union. We did, and then polling on immigration went really low. Very small, less than 10% of people in the UK thought it was the biggest problem when it's usually like a third or a half. Until COVID happens. And then slowly after that, we get a huge surge of immigration. And for the first time ever, now that free movement is over, most migrants who come to the UK are from outside of the EU. That never used to be the case. EU migration is negative now. More of them are leaving than they are arriving. And since we had that surge, in part because EU migrants needed to get replaced, because we had humanitarian crises, because the Conservatives, quote unquote, were taking back control and putting in immigration policy that was full of flaws and loopholes and everything else that allowed massive numbers of people to come in, to the point that we've had net migration of like close to 1 million for the last couple of years, something like 800, 900,000. And at the same time, also courtesy of Brexit, we had small boat arrivals on an unprecedented rise, or not seen since the early 2000s. Tens of thousands of people coming in on small boats. Back in the day, we used to be able to send them back to the last European country that they came from, because that was a European Union regulation called Dublin 2 and 3. We used to be able to send them back to the first EU country that they came from. We can't do that anymore, so we basically have conservatives trying to mess around with as many gimmicks as possible to deal with these new arrivals that are clearly frustrating people. Policies like trying to send them to Rwanda for offshore processing, which was probably one of the most expensive, inefficient, inhumane, torturous, waste of time policies ever. I think they got like less than 20 people deported and spent millions on it. Followed up by immigration policy from the Tories that was just completely ham-fisted on student visas, work visas, you name it, to the point now that basically we are in a pretty unprecedented spike in immigration that is almost entirely the making of the person who is making the most profit off of it, who is Nigel Farage. So right now we have, again, for the first time in quite a few years, almost a decade, is the biggest problem for UK voters is immigration. And it is basically just going to open the door for a bunch of city trader, millionaire, disgusting spiv cunts to capitalize off of people's fears, capitalize off of propaganda and inflated stats and misconceptions to kind of do what they've always wanted to do, which is to use immigration as a bludgeon against everything about this country that they don't like. They want to slash welfare right, left, and center. They want to reduce taxes. Nigel Farage has for years spoken about how he wants to have an insurance-based healthcare system. We know what they want, and they're going to use people's fears to get it. And I don't really think there's anything Keir Starmer can do about immigration that is going to turn that around. It's just, that's where we are.
Okay, well, thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. Drew Pavlo, thanks again for being here. What is your thoughts on Reform UK and the immigrant crisis in UK?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. And my audio is okay? People can hear me fine?
I can hear you. You're fine.
Okay. So I want to very quickly explain that I'm actually quite party agnostic on this. If Keir Starmer were to lower migration in Britain and fix the issue, then I would support Keir Starmer, but he's not going to do that. I would support anyone who would do it. I don't really necessarily even like Nigel Farage that much. I don't even really like Reform that much. I just genuinely look at what's happening in the UK and I see how disastrous mass migration from extremely poor countries has been to the UK. In terms of economics, in terms of culture, in terms of the massive problem with rising sectarian violence in that society, the massive problem with rising Islamic extremism in that society. And I just see that, and I love Britain, and I see it is in a really terrible state right now. And so I would basically support anybody who would fix that. And whether it's Nigel Farage or Reform, I don't care. If Keir Starmer did it, I'd support Keir Starmer. I know that Lonerbox started going into the whole claim that, these talks about immigration are actually all just sort of like cultural war distractions to try and distract people from talking about economics, and the billionaires want to distract people. Well, here's the thing. I think that people are concerned, rightly, that there has been massive cultural dislocation in Britain within just one generation. Even if you solved every single economic issue in the country, even if you had, say, like a Jeremy Corbyn socialist government, and they massively increased welfare and all these different things, that would not necessarily actually solve the issue of people feeling a sense of cultural dislocation in the country that they've been brought up in. Britain has been majority British for 1,000 years. It has been a nation for like 1,000 years. And based on current migration rates, the current migration rates have the British majority on track to become a minority within one generation, within about maybe the late 2040s. This is obviously the largest cultural dislocation, the largest demographic and cultural change in Britain in its entire history. People like to talk about, for example, the Norman invasion. Well, Britain was invaded by the Normans. It's always been a country of migration. The amount of Normans who migrated to Britain after the Norman conquest, I think it was about like 20,000 people. I think the equivalent percentage of the population was about maybe like 2% or 3%. It was a very low number, and they assimilated into the wider population pretty seamlessly without basically leaving much of a dent. Whereas what we are seeing now is basically within a 30-year time period, the British majority, the ethnic British people, the ethnic English people, for example, in England, are going to become a minority within about 30, 40 years. Over that time period from about 2000 to about 2040, within about a generation and a half, you're going to see the English people become a minority in the country that they have basically been a majority in for 1,000 years. And so I think that level of cultural and this demographic change in one generation is always going to lead to massive amounts of political and social tension. I think it's really crazy for any country to try and run that type of migration policy. That level of dislocation and change, and just basically a generation and a half is crazy. I know Lonerbox starts talking about the importance of the migrants for economics. There are 1.9 million foreign nationals on benefits in the UK right now. And benefit claims per 1,000 people from some of the new migrant communities from the third world, they are vastly overrepresented when it comes to benefit claims. Half of all social housing in London is occupied by foreign nationals. There has been, if the Boris wave was going to lead to economic growth, we would have seen it already. Instead, Britain has basically sclerotic growth alongside the largest amount of migration in its entire history. The migration is largely coming from places that are very culturally different to Britain. Lonerbox makes the point that, you know, Nigel Farage had problems with Polish people moving to Britain during the time of the EU. I actually think that's retarded. I think it would be so much easier for Britain to integrate people from Poland than it is to integrate people from some of the poorest parts of the third world. I think it would actually be so much better for Britain if they had migration from other European countries that are quite culturally similar and have a relatively similar living standard. I think that would be actually infinitely better than the current situation, because the Boris wave seems to basically have been composed of mostly people from some of the poorest parts of the world that are very culturally different to Britain, and it has created a lot of social tensions in that society.
Okay, well, thank you both for being here. I'm going to open up the floor now to see what you guys both think. Go ahead, Lonerbox, and you can respond to him if you'd like, and we'll just kind of open it up. And if you feel like you're being talked over or whatever, just get my attention and I'll make sure you get a chance to speak. Go ahead.
Trying not to tune out after hearing the fear of sectarian violence as a result of immigration in the United Kingdom.
I mean, it's happening though. There was a stabbing attack about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's not exactly like I'm just saying you understand that is like not exactly novel to the UK to have sectarian violence as a result of immigration. Do you know?
It wasn't there. But this is the thing. It wasn't there until recently. So why import it?
That's what I'm saying. Okay, you don't know what I'm referring to. It's okay. You said that you would support Keir Starmer if he lowered net migration.
Yeah, massively.
Okay, and by how much?
Needs to deport people. Probably needs to get it down to like 100,000 people a year, and they need to deport a lot of people part of the Boris wave who came in the last 5 to 10 years.
So he needs to lower net migration by what, like 10%, 20, compared to the Tory years?
About 90%. It has to go down to like 50 to 100,000 people a year, and they have to basically start deporting people who are Islamic extremists and people who are on foreign benefits and stuff like that who are not integrating.
So you acknowledge, first of all, just to start, that in the first year, given that he came in halfway through the year, Keir Starmer in 2024 has already got net migration down by half, almost half.
Yeah, from 900,000 to like 450,000, but that's still a really high number, and it still needs to go down to like 50 to 100,000 probably.
Where did you get 50 to 100,000 from? Why is that your standard?
I think that would be probably the most realistic outcome, where Britain could actually start to assimilate the people who've already started coming into the country. You have to lower it significantly, probably by like 90%, because at the current rate of migration, there are sectarian communities forming and people won't assimilate into the majority population of Britain. That's why you're starting to see creolization. You're starting to see, like, for example, like there's literally like new dialects forming in Britain right now. For example, multicultural London English is like literally a new dialect of the English language, and that's
has been for like decades. I know. New languages forming are because net migration has been quite high for the last couple of years. Before then, it was like 200, 300,000. But why are you? What metric are you using to say that 90,000 or 100,000? Why does it have to be that? Is 200,000 like going to cause sectarian violence and creolization and all that shit? But 100,000 wouldn't.
You know what? You could have 200,000 Poles come a year and it'd probably be fine. If it's 200,000 people from Afghanistan and from the poorest parts of the Middle East and stuff, it's not going to be fine. So I actually think, rather than the numbers, probably actually the cultural origin of the migrants that is the most important thing.
So we've already had quite a lot of like net migration from humanitarian purposes. You know that from the last from the Boris wave, quote unquote. You know that like about 30% of that Boris wave was Ukrainians and British nationals from Hong Kong.
Yeah, and they're good. They're good migrants. Lonerbox. They're not creating terror attacks. They're not stabbing Jews at synagogues. They're integrating pretty well.
So your issue is that you think migrants are committing more crime? Is that the issue?
Yeah, and that is absolutely the case. So, for example, you can actually look at the statistics, and about one in three sexual assaults in Britain in 2024 was committed by people who are foreign nationals.
1 in 3 sexual assaults.
Yes, that's an actual stat.
Where is it from?
I can get it up for you 1 second. So the foreign population of Britain is 10.9%. Foreign national share of rape convictions is 22.1%, rising to almost 30% when considering people with unidentifiable nationality. Foreign national share of sexual assault convictions is 26.1%, rising to almost 35%.
No, I'm not asking you to recite it from me. I'm asking you where you got it from.
Yeah, I got it from Matthew Goodwin, who was citing freedom of information requests.
Okay. Do you realize that on ONS we have recorded stats of sexual crimes? I don't know why you would need to do an information request and go to a Matthew Goodwin.
I mean, but that's a stat though. Like, are you denying
It's
that
a
it's a real
stat. Well, I can find you stats from the. Would you be more convinced by stats that are actually from the government, or?
So the Telegraph, for example, foreign nationals convicted of quarter of sex assaults on women, and then a further 8% are offenders of unknown nationalities. So these are official figures, Lonerbox. These are literally official figures.
Well, wait, how do you know they're official figures? Where
it's according to the ministry. It's according to the Ministry of.
Drop it in the group chat, and I will bring it up, and we can see it on stream. How's that?
Yeah.
Drop it in the group chat, and I will pull it up, and I'll
dropping the link to you right now.
And I'll just find you what is actually on ONS. 1 second.
Like, these are literally the stats.
Well, like very easy to find out. So once you drop it in the group chat there, I will pull it up on stream, and we will be able to see it.
I don't know how to drop it in the group chat, so I'm just going to send it to you, Wick, personally.
No, okay.
In a
that works.
message.
Whatever
and then
needs.
You can put it in the chat for me. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, do I have to pay for this?
I mean, it's obviously behind a paywall, but it is the Telegraph, which is
okay. Well, give me a second. I got ways to deal with this. Hold on, give me a second.
And the thing is, you can actually see very similar statistics all across Europe. So, for example,
so hang on, I'm just looking here at this is from England and Wales. This is from like the entire from ONS stats.
Yeah, you're looking at like grooming gang stats. You're saying child sexual abuse in 2021. I'm not even talking about.
So that's why I'm curious though. If you're talking about like child, so you're saying that migrants
this is all sexual assaults.
You're saying that foreigners are equally represented roughly for child sexual abuse, which is the one thing that captures like the entire discourse in the UK, which is grooming, but somehow they're overrepresented for adults.
Yes. So foreign national share of rape convictions is 22.1%, and then a further 8% have unidentified nationality. Many of them would obviously be foreign nationals as well.
Wait. Do you know what unidentified nationality means?
I mean, obviously it's unidentified, but
it's not getting logged. This is why people struggle to get information from police units about grooming as well, because they request data, but for the majority of the time they just don't log the ethnicity of the offender.
Okay, but
that could be white, that could be Muslim, that could be anything.
Okay, even if you ignore the 8% that are unidentifiable, though, it is a verifiable fact. Foreign national share of rape convictions is 22.1%.
If it was 22.1%, then foreign nationals make up what of the population?
10.9%. So they're
minus 8% that we don't know about.
No, sorry.
That's like there might be.
Okay. Let me clarify.
No.
So I'll explain.
Sorry.
I'll explain. So what this article is saying and what Drew is claiming is that we have 22.1% that are known, according to this, to have been done by foreign nationals. There is, in addition to that, 8% more that is unidentified, whatever that means. That is the claim. So it's not 22.1 minus 8.
So the base level here is 22.9% of foreign 22.9% of foreign nationals. That's the base level, and then
22.1%.
It could be as high as it could. 22.1, and then it could go as high as 30%, determining based on how many people in the unidentifiable bracket would be foreign nationals.
Even though for the UK, we know that from people trying to investigate grooming gangs that people are more likely to log the ethnicity if they're a foreigner because they find it more relevant.
No, that's actually not true. So if you look at the Casey report into the grooming gangs, the recent one, that actually found that there was a systematic underreporting of ethnic data. She's found that there was systematic shying away from reporting ethnic data.
That's not what I said. Yes, there's, as in general, most stats don't have ethnicity next to them from older data. That doesn't mean that it's underreporting foreigners.
So I can actually, I'll quote you the case report. It says the ethnicity of perpetrators is shied away from and still not recorded in 2/3 of cases, meaning it's not possible to draw conclusions at a national level for grooming gangs. So you're saying that
that's exactly what I said.
Obviously, so it is a different. So there's two different things here, right? There's the grooming gangs, and then there's the share of sexual assaults committed by foreign nationals. And you're saying that in a lot of cases, there's not proper reporting. But we're saying that literally as a baseline percentage, it's 22.1%. That what I pointed to. If you consider, then there's another 8% of that are unidentifiable, and then the rest are like, say, British nationals.
Okay, and what is this from, Loner?
So we're saying that we've got 21 versus foreign nationals are what I think in 2021 they were 16%.
10.9%. 10.9% foreign nationals.
Born abroad, it's 16 from the 2021-22 census.
What I've got is 10.9%.
From when though? This is from the 2021 census, 16%.
What page do you want me to look at?
Born abroad.
Okay, even if that's the case, it's still massively over.
Yeah, that's not massively. Remember that migrants in general are much younger. Like the average Muslim in the UK is like 20 years younger than the average Brit. We know that younger people commit more crime. So you would expect a slight overrepresentation of a few percentage points.
Okay, why would you expect that though? Because they don't have to be in the country. So it's a question: why do you want them in the country if they're going to?
But you're in favor of some immigration. Your arbitrary standard of 100K for some reason, but
yeah, I am in favor of some level of migration. My main problem is culturally incompatible migration. So, for example, most of the Middle East and North Africa is pretty incompatible to Britain in terms of migration.
In what way? In terms of when they're here. So you said crime. Their crime rates are about the same. The crime rates are about their crime rates are about what you would
and then
their crime rates are about what you would expect from a younger population. Younger people commit more crime.
Okay, let me go through some of these stats. Freedom of information requests in the UK find North Africans are convicted for sexual offences at nearly 7 times the rate of British people. Middle Easterners at nearly 4 times the rate. Sub-Saharan Africans at nearly 3 times the rate. People from Afghanistan and Eritrea, two of the largest groups on the small boats, are more than 20 times more likely than British nationals to be convicted of sexual offences, including rape and sexual assault. Foreign nationals are more than 3 times as likely as British nationals to be arrested for sexual offences, are responsible for 2/3 of sex offence arrests in London, and are twice as likely to be arrested for all crimes as British nationals. In total, 87 nationalities in the UK have higher conviction rates for rape and other sexual offences than British nationals. And recently, the British state has given out nearly 600,000 long-term visas to people from those countries.
Do you think it's ironic that that this person that you're quoting from, who is saying that they got it from a freedom of information request? I'm guessing they didn't show like a table or anything or like a government data that they actually got from that, right?
I mean, I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link.
You can tell me if you've read it. Is it yes or no?
Yeah, it's data from the Ministry of Justice. It's literally data from the Ministry of Justice. So you'll have to explain to us why the Ministry of Justice is wrong on this.
Well, it's not that they're wrong. It's that the person you're using. What did they give from the Ministry of Justice? Because when you look at crime rates across ethnicities, when they break it down by nationality, whether it's Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Arab, white, it seems to be that overall, in general, for crime, including when you account for indictable offenses, which are the ones that are the most serious ones, the ones that are most likely to get you in jail, these groups are not as overrepresented as you're saying even for indictable offenses. So why would it be that in general, government data, which covers crime quite broadly, that's what you get when you look in ONS, you get crimes, you get indictable offenses, you get minor offenses, you get stats for that. And it seems that the representation rates are a little bit higher, which can be accounted for by them being a much younger population. So it's just weird that ONS is telling me that, this guy is saying they got a freedom of information request and they found one crime in particular that has a lot more representation.
I mean, would you say that it's literally just because they're young, or do you think there is any level of cultural aspect that could lead to higher rates of offending against women?
In the UK?
Like, do you think, for example, that like Pakistanis have a better culture for feminism and respect towards women than the UK?
Probably not, which is why their offense rates are a little bit higher from
Well, not just a
ONS,
little bit higher,
about
quite
2% higher
significantly
than
higher.
whites. Well,
It's
again,
not just
ONS
2% higher.
ONS has them at 2% higher than whites, but
Okay,
Well,
so it
I've
seems to
literally just
be
cited
for
to
crime
you.
in general.
okay. It
I mean,
seems
I have cited to you sources that show that up to a quarter of all sexual offences in Britain are basically imported by the government through mass migration, and that is Ministry of Justice statistics, and you don't really have an answer for that.
Well, why does ONS not show you stats for rape in particular? Why can I get this on ONS?
But I'm giving you the stats right now. I've given you the sources. I've given you the news.
Well, I'm asking you to explain then, why are they about equally represented on
This is
on general crimes and even indictable crimes, but just for some reason you've gone to a
these are
Telegraph
ONS
source
data.
and found.
But it's not the Telegraph. It's freedom of information requests based on ONS data.
So you've told me it's free information request based on ONS data, but then Ministry of
Why
Justice.
don't you read it?
Are
Why
these
don't you
the
read
same?
the article? Why don't you read the article? The
Oh, you're
Ministry of
telling me-
Justice gave the data. The Ministry
You're
of
telling me
Justice gave the
different.
data.
You're telling me two different things about the same article. So
I mean,
you can link it. I'm
giving you
still
the
looking at
article.
I'm looking at the DMs. I can't see a
I'll
link
send it.
here.
Okay, I'll send it to Wick.
you can put in the shared group chat. Me, you, and Lonerbox have, right? You
I was trying to do that. It didn't work, but I'll just send it to you, Wick.
okay?
And then you can hopefully put it in the group chat for me,
Okay,
please.
sure, I can do that.
In any case, if your issue was crime, wouldn't your issue be with Windrush, with the black population in the UK more than the Muslim population? Because their crime rates across the board, and including in indictable crimes, are actually quite a bit higher. Why focus on Muslims?
Obviously, I mean, there have been obviously a lot of problems with the Windrush generation too, but I think there's more problems overall with the Islamic community because there's also terrorism to consider as well. There's also the grooming gangs.
Well, terrorism counts as crime. I think it's like 1% of Muslim prisoners are in jail for terrorism.
So what? Like, there shouldn't even be zero. There shouldn't even be one in the country. Why would there be anyone in the country who's a terrorist?
I don't know. Why do we have like local white terrorists? Why do we have like Darren Osborne running his vehicle into a mosque and killing people? Like, why do we have that?
Okay,
Of course, for
you
any
can't explain it.
population, you're going to have violence. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, why would you choose to bring in a population that commits terrorism at a pretty high rate?
What do you mean a pretty high rate? Do you have like ONS data on terrorism rates from Muslim immigrants as well?
I mean, we could just literally point to all the recent terrorist attacks that we've seen in Britain. Like, for example, 7/7.
That's not stats. That's not statistics. 7/7 was like almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We have serial killers. We have like Fred West. We have Jimmy Savile. We have what are you talking about?
Yeah, but here's the difference, Lonerbox.
Drew, just real quick.
There are British native-born serial killers and evil people, yes, but it's a choice to then import people who do that into your country from a foreign nationality.
So this is from the article that you linked, Drew, and I have it up on the stream screen. You can read. It says and this is fact checking basically the Farage's numbers here. Says our estimates conclude that Afghans are closer to 3 times more likely to be convicted of sexual offense than someone born in the UK, rather than 22 times.
I mean, yeah.
Although limitations to the data, let me finish.
Yeah.
Although limitations to the data, which we will explain later on, mean that it is not currently possible to make a fully accurate conclusion.
Yeah, because do you know how many Afghans who were convicted in the space of 2 years that they based this data on? 77. That's 77 too many. That is going to be your response.
Yeah,
but
that is literally an answer.
Out of how many Brits who were convicted of sexual violence at the same time? 14,270.
But can you explain though, like, why would you want to have 77 people who are rapists from a foreign nationality in your country?
Probably because in terms of any decision that we make, whether or not when we choose to allow certain communities that are more crime-ridden to have babies instead of aborting them and doing eugenics, the same reason that we do immigration is because generally when you have large numbers is. What? Okay, well done.
I don't want eugenics.
Yes, well done for following what. Okay, well, why not? Because why would you want to have a population that commits more crime? Like in Carlton and Glasgow, those people commit. I mean, like in. So
just don't let them into the country.
You're against eugenics, but not immigration, even though the idea you're saying that because a non-zero number of these people commit crimes, that's a reason to keep them all out of the country.
Yes.
Poles
Why
commit
would you?
crimes. Irish people commit a lot of crime when
Yeah,
they
but at
came
much
here.
lower rates. Much lower rates. Much
The
lower
rate
rates.
of Irish immigration crime rate was
Okay, I've got a great.
much
Here's a
lower.
great statistic. So here's a great
Hang on,
statistic.
Drew,
for
did
you.
you just say that the rate of Irish immigrants coming to the UK in the 18th was much lower than the rate of Muslims today for crime?
No, I didn't say that. I was going
Okay,
to
you
go
walked
to
it
my
back.
next
That's
set.
fine. Okay, good. Because that was
Okay,
fucking
okay,
mental. What are you talking about?
I didn't even hear what you said. What I was going to say, I was
Why'd you
going
answer
to
it
point,
then?
for example, no, because I was trying to get to my next point. I was going to quote to you, for example. So these are statistics from Germany, for example, and they're quite similar to Britain. You see these statistics basically similar all across Europe. The data in the
You
2023
just, sorry,
police
no,
crime-
Drew, you just quoted data based on 77 Afghans in the space of 2 years, as opposed to 14,000 people convicted. I'm not going to let you skip over to another different country where I'm less familiar with the data collection that they have and with the whoever does their national statistics as well, if you can't even be accurate on the UK one. Like, that's
You're
an
not even
important detail. That's an important
I
detail
don't
that
get it.
this
What's your
data
point?
came from
What's your point?
77 Afghans.
77 rapists, yes, and
So even if 77 of them, even if out of a million Muslims, if 77 of them are rapists, you want to, yeah, that is an excuse to keep them all out.
It's not just 77. What do you mean?
No,
Like,
if it were, well, if it were, you're saying 77 out of the Afghan population, because between 2021 and 23, we had a good like 10, we had quite a few thousand Afghans come to the UK because of the refugee crisis. So when you're saying that 77 is enough to exclude an entire nation, then you would exclude any nation. You'd exclude Poles for that.
Well, no, let me explain to you, right? You're familiar with the fact that the vast majority of sexual offences in Britain are never result in convictions, correct?
So you can just make up the stats?
No, but that is true though. It's true. The vast majority of sexual assaults in Britain never even end up in a conviction because it is very hard to get rape convictions. So
yeah, and that means that the rate from everyone would be higher, doesn't it?
Yes, but it also means that the 77 rapes from the Afghan community would be higher than what it was in reality.
Yeah, and that's the same with everyone. We're trying to talk about proportionality, which is why I don't know why you wouldn't just stick to, because we have very reliable across the entire nation stats on crime, arrest rates, conviction rates, custodial sentence rates, and not to mention on indictable crimes, which are the worst crimes. We have stats for by nation for all of these crimes, but you want to go on to the one that's like more opaque and harder to report and harder to get access to figures to when you have to limit your sample to 77 Afghans. Why not just go with the crime rates that are sweeping across the entire nation that you can just get on ONS without doing a freedom of information request or anything else?
I just want you to ask,
because it doesn't give you the answer that you want?
I just want you to know, like, why is it that people in Britain have to be raped by foreigners? Why is it the case?
Why don't have to. Why is it that someone has to?
That is the result.
Why is it?
But that is the result. That is the result.
Okay, why is it that people? Why is it that people in Glasgow have to get fucking knife threats from people born in Carlton? Because we could really just
unfortunately
not allow those families to give birth, couldn't we?
Unfortunately, there is always going to be a native-born criminal element. That will always happen in every single.
And there's always going to be a foreign-born criminal element, isn't there?
But it's not necessarily the case that you have to bring foreigners into your country from places of the world that are very culturally dissimilar to you.
So it's about culture. You don't care about the crime rates. The crime rates are not that different, especially if you count for their age.
No, the crime rates are not that different.
No, they're not.
Hold on, just real quick.
I mean,
hold on, stop, Drew, real quick. I want to finish up the crime, but then I do want to get to the culture point. So we'll finish up the crime portion of this. Then I do have a question for Drew and Lonerbox, actually, on why culture matters or if it does when it comes to these things. But go ahead. I'm just letting you know what's coming.
Can I respond?
Yeah, I'm letting you. Yeah.
So this article that I linked, even though it says that Nigel Farage was wrong that it was up to 22 times higher, it's still multiple times higher. And so the question is, why would you have any times higher? And here's a good example, right? In Germany, and I will cite this statistic. 1 second. Let me bring it up. In Germany, Algerians are suspects in violent crimes at 17 times the rate that native Germans are. 25,000 Algerian citizens live in Germany. 1729 was suspected.
Did you just say suspects?
No. We're charged by police. Charged by police. So 39,000 Japanese citizens live in Germany. 2 were charged by police for violent crimes in 2023. So that's a 135,000 time percentage higher rate for Algerian criminals in Germany compared to Japanese criminals. And why is that the case? Obviously, there are cultural differences between groups, right, Lonerbox?
I'm
Like
just going to
Algeria.
go with. Sorry, I'm just going to go with the country that we were here to talk about because I'm not going to let you go with whatever like random fucking assertion that you've got from different countries.
No,
Because
but
if I can't even trust you, if I can't even trust you to accept stats from the ONS about crime rates for ethnic groups in the UK, even when we break it down by nationality, why am I going to trust what you say about Germany? Fuck off.
No, I mean, why would it be different in Britain than it is to Germany? Like, of course,
I don't think it's.
going to
I don't
be-
know if it's different how it's in Germany. I'm not. I'm not talking about Britain versus Germany. I'm talking about your brain and your capability of being able to acknowledge national data, the most reliable data that we have, and you not seeming able to accept the fact that by country, countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, even wherever the third one was, Arabs as well, even by these ethnic groups, we have crimes across the entire country for these crimes broken down into arrest, into custodial sentences, into indictable crimes, ones that are more likely to get you put into jail. And their overrepresentation is slightly higher, but accountable for the fact that they're younger. But you can't accept that for some reason, even though that's the most reliable data we have.
You still don't have a response to the fact that 20% of
that's the most reliable data that we have. What is your answer to that? Do you accept it? Do you accept it as real or not?
I mean, I've just given you Ministry of Justice statistics, and you're not accepting that as real.
Because I can get can you get that from the actual Ministry of Justice page? Can you get that from the ONS, or do you have to?
The Ministry of Justice supplied the statistics, and then these statistics were then provided to the press. And I've sent you multiple news articles related to it.
So why can't you, even if you think that they're overrepresented in this one crime, but not even in like indictable crimes for some reason, why is that? Can you accept that? Can you accept that they are somehow about equally represented in pretty much every other crime? Like,
I mean, maybe you're right.
Maybe.
You're right.
Why? What? No, not maybe. Do you want me to send you the ONS page?
Sure, send it through. Send it through. I still think that even if it were to be the case that, like, for example, Afghans were only 3 times more likely to be convicted of sexual assault in Britain, then I still think that's still unacceptable to.
Based on a sample of 77 offenders. I mean,
but there's a small amount of Afghans in the community, and there were still 77 offenders. That is still. That still shows a large overrepresentation, because if you then had millions of Afghans in the country, then of course the number of sexual assaults based on that disproportionate representation would be higher.
Why? So you're going with the idea that they are about equally represented in every crime, apparently arrest rates, custodial,
I'm not sure.
everything, including indictable crimes, but for some reason they're overrepresented in sexual violence, but not even against kids, because against kids they're equally represented as well.
No, that's not even true, because for example, in the grooming gang, I mean, no, but I did point you to the fact that the Casey report showed with the grooming gangs inquiries that there was systematic shying away from recording of ethnic data in the cases, that this was a major failing. It meant that it was extremely hard to draw conclusions at a national level. It did say that the report found in 3 areas, Greater Manchester, South Yorkshire and West Yorkshire, disproportionate numbers of men from Asian ethnic background, Pakistani background, were suspects for group-based child sexual
They
assault.
found that, and you'll also acknowledge that the Casey report said that this was from places where there were high-profile instances of a quite rare crime in the country, which means if you have, like the mafia, for example, if you have a exceptional kind of crime and a rare kind of crime, a subset of a subset of a subset of a crime, then yeah, if you go to a place where there's a high-profile case, you're going to see skewed data. And Casey said that, and you ignored that. I don't know why you didn't mention that. Casey said that is not applicable to the country. For the country, for sexual violence, the one where you have where we have data from the entire country for CSA, again, they are about equally represented. And that's on page 38 of what I sent you, Wick.
Well, I don't know if it's equally represented, because I do have statistics from the Ministry of Justice that you haven't responded to that show that they're up to 1/3 of sexual assaults.
I have responded to it. No,
you just said that you don't believe it.
Is that all I said? Did I not tell you why there was maybe an issue with that?
I mean, this data was drawn from the Police National Computer by the Ministry of Justice following an FOI by the Centre for Migration Control. I wish to make a Freedom of Information request. Of the 1,453 sexual assault convictions which took place, 380 were of foreign nationals, while a further 118 were of nationalities recorded as unknown. The number will be foreign, and thus a number will be foreign nationals.
Oh, wait. So they didn't. So they said they got the data from the government. for Migration Control is a think tank committed to dramatically reducing migration in Britain. Really?
I know, but
You want me to
like,
trust? You want me to trust these guys' word of what they heard from the ONS over the ONS itself? Why would you do that?
it's Ministry of Justice statistics. They gave
No,
they
it's
gave the
not.
statistics. They provided
It's
they provided the number of convictions for sexual assault on a female across England and Wales in the year 2024, and then they broke down the number of people who were foreign nationals as part of that.
I mean, they're telling you that they've done that, right? But they don't actually have
Like
the ONS raw data there, because ONS has raw data. You can go and find it publicly. I don't know why you would go with like taking the word off of a think tank that's goal is to reduce dramatically migration. I don't know why you would do that over just looking at the ONS with the data that we have nationwide. We have nationwide data on so many different subsets of arrest, conviction, indictable conviction. We have all of that, but you're just choosing the one that you prefer, the one that makes you happier.
Okay.
I mean,
you can respond, but then I have a question for both of you.
okay, you go, Wick.
Okay. And it's very simple. Well, maybe not. What does it mean to be British? Okay, this
Actually,
is ties
can I say
the,
one last thing?
Well, just
Can
real
we
quick,
stay on the
just real
crime
quick.
thing
Let
for
me
one
finish.
last thing
Let me
before we go
finish,
into it?
and then you can. This goes into the issue of culture and what cultures are compatible or incompatible, and to what level they are, and whether or not the cultures that are coming in to Britain are incompatible with Britain itself. So I'll give you the mic first to you, Drew. What do you think?
I think Britain is a nation that has existed essentially for 1,000 years. England has existed for about 1,000 years. They're coherent nations. I think it is primarily something that there is an ethnic component to it. It's not just it's not necessarily as blank slate as, for example, the United States. I mean, the United States does have this tradition of being kind of like a country of migrants, but I think Britain, like, while it has had waves of migration, I think it is slightly different to America, which has that sort of like founding creed. I think there is an ethnic component to the nationality. Doesn't mean that people can't assimilate and be culturally British and stuff like that, but there is an ethnic component, and I think it would be regrettable if the English people ethnically were a minority of England after 1,000 years.
Okay. What does that mean, though, to be culturally British? I guess I'll ask again. What does that mean to
Well,
assimilate? What is an example of someone who's assimilated to be culturally British? What would that look like?
I think you would basically need them to be willing to die for the country, to defend the country, and there's systematic sort of like, you know, there are a lot of communities that don't join up to the military in Britain at the same rates. You have to basically have your first loyalty to Britain above, for example, religious or sectarian interests, and you have Islamic extremists in Britain like Muhammad Hijab or Dili Hussein who very openly say that their allegiance is to Islam and not to Britain. So that's a huge problem.
Okay. Lonerbox, same question to you. What does it mean to be British, and what does it mean to be culturally British, I guess?
What it means to be culturally, I don't really think about issues like that all that much. I'd rather just think about like what kind of policies can help people, like what we can do to improve the economy and the healthcare system, and and to have fairness, to have like relatively low crime rates, so people can be safe, to have like some kind of level of sense of community for people. I really, when people talk about how we need to be more culturally British, I mean, Drew kind of gave the game away right at the beginning. It really just boils down to them wanting to have an ethnic makeup for its own sake.
Well, Israel has an ethnic makeup. I mean, Israel has an ethnic makeup. Israel has basically,
not for its own sake. Israel has an ethnic makeup because it's surrounded by people that would otherwise like ruin them. Like Jews cannot survive as a minority in that region.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be good for the English people if they were a minority in England either. Because
English people are a minority in like white English people are a minority in London. Are they fucked because of that?
Well,
in the same way that Israelis Jews would be if they were a minority in the Middle East?
No, maybe not as bad as Israeli Jews being a minority in the Middle East, but I still think that there's been some pretty bad changes in London. There's terrible cases of terrorism. There's terrible cases of Islamic extremism. There's terrible incidents of crime. People feel culturally alienated and atomized. I want you to explain why it would be a good thing for English people to be a minority in England.
I don't think there's a good or bad thing about an ethnic makeup changing for its own sake. What I think right now
But the
for this
policy,
country,
the current policy is changing it though. The current policy is changing it, so you have to justify why.
do you think
that's
the wait? Sorry, do you think the intent of the current policy is to? It's not just policy
I
that's
don't think it's
changing
the
our ethnic
intent, but
makeup.
I don't think it's an intent. I'm not going into the whole, oh, this is a deliberate great replacement thing, but it is an observable fact that this current policy is changing things, and you have to try to justify why that's a good thing.
Because otherwise, we are a country that has an aging population. We are a country, Scotland, for example, its population is set to get lower without migration. We cannot sustain a national health service, a growing economy, a fairly liberal capitalist economy with a shrinking population or with an aging population. Because again, you tell me then, what is one country, one developed, successful country in the world that's a liberal democracy that doesn't take in like fairly high numbers of immigration?
Literally Japan.
You want to be like Japan?
Japan is much better than Britain right now, and it has higher GDP per capita, lower inequality, less crime, less terrorism. In so many different ways, Japan is literally superior to Britain right now.
Japan is not superior to Britain right now. Japan's had economic issues for the last 3 decades. Okay, their debt is spiraling.
Their economy is literally better than Britain.
Do you understand that Japan is currently increasing migration because they cannot sustain their state?
At a very low rate. Can you explain?
Yeah, it's at a low rate because people lose their shit whenever migrants come to Japan. People freak the fuck out. And it's also the fact that
Japan should remain culturally cohesive. I want Japan to remain a Japanese society.
For the sake of them becoming an aging population and not being able to sustain anything that they've currently got and having a tanking economy.
It's better than Japan basically becoming culturally unrecognizable. Nations can recover from war. Nations can recover even from 2 atomic bombs on their cities, but they can't recover from being completely ethnically terraformed. The demographics just changing forever.
So for the sake of demographics, really, you would have a shrinking economy. You would
Japan
have
is literally
a
better than
tanking
Britain.
welfare state.
Dude, the British welfare state's tanking right now as we speak. The economy in Britain is so bad. You've had the Boris wave, and it's not leading to any economic growth at all. So what's the point?
The Boris wave was because of horrible mismanagement of immigration, quite a lot of which has been reversed.
Okay, let's go through.
By that.
Let's go through some of the British economic statistics. Right, I researched them. Borrowing $100 billion this year, 13% up this year. Public sector.
You're talking about borrowing when you just brought up Japan. Are you fucking mental?
No, I'm going into this. Public sector.
Which country? Wait. Which country among advanced economies has the highest debt to GDP ratio?
Let Drew finish.
Let Drew get through. Borrowing is your first example. Oh my god!
But I'm giving you an example, Lonerbox. You're not even listening to me. You're saying that borrowing is a bad thing. Japan has so much debt. I'm pointing to the fact that Britain is its debt is exploding. It is borrowing all this stuff, and you've got high migration, so it doesn't even make sense. It's not even working. So far, that Britain has a £72 billion deficit this year. Public sector net debt is up to 94% of GDP, the highest since the 1960s. Last month alone, £10 billion in interest, £60 billion in debt interest this year. So you've got the debt problem, and you've got high migration at the same time. So how does that work?
What do you mean? What do you mean the debt problem? All countries have debt and growing debts for multiple reasons.
Yes.
Not the highest debt to GDP of the entire developed world.
Yes.
And not to mention that the OBR in the UK, which actually handles economic forecasts, is quite clear on this, that lowering migration increases deficits and debt because migrants are younger, they're working age, they can contribute more to the exchequer.
Okay, I actually dispute that point.
So why was that? Why was debt your first example to compare it to Japan?
Lonerbox, you're not even listening to me. I'm pointing out to you. You're using Japan as a bad example because Japan has so much debt. I'm pointing to the fact that Britain is getting into more and more debt. It is struggling economically. There's no growth in Britain, but you've had massive high levels of migration, the highest levels of migration in Britain's entire history, in the entire 1,000-year history of Britain. So why is it not leading to economic growth?
You want to? What do you know? Do you know why?
No, tell me.
What would you tell me was wrong with the Boris wave?
It was mainly people from low wage background, so they're not actually economically productive. That's the main
low
point.
Wages. What? So worker visas were too low wage.
I'll give you an example. So there are 1.9 million foreign nationals on benefits in the UK. Just 1 in 10 Somalis in the UK are in full employment. Is that going to economically benefit the UK?
With Somalis are often asylum seekers and refugees. Of course, they wouldn't be an economic benefit. So,
Yeah,
as
I
far as
know,
the net
exactly.
migration, as far as the no, not exactly, because refugees and asylum seekers are a tiny proportion of net migration, as I'm sure you know. They're not. The point of refugees and asylum seekers isn't supposed to be an economic benefit. That's supposed to be a humanitarian endeavor. We're talking about immigration policy
Well,
for
it's
regular
obviously not working.
migration.
Well, I look at
We're
it
talking
as
about
I look
regular
at it.
migration.
I
So you
no, not
understand as
necessarily.
well that part
I'm
of that
looking at people
wave.
coming into the country. I'm looking at people coming into the country, whether they be asylum seekers or they be legal immigrants. There's still the problem that a large number of people who are coming into Britain are not economically productive.
That's what I'm asking you. Because of what? Because of work visas? Like, what's the issue there? With do you think people
I
who
mean,
come on
I mean,
work visas
like,
are not productive?
no, a
Or
lot of work visas are being handed out to people on a really, in really low skilled areas. So, for example,
what's the wait?
I,
What's the minimum for a work
no,
visa for a skilled
I'll
worker
give you an
visa?
example. I'll give you an example. There are literally skilled workers visas for. There's literally people on skilled visas doing car washes.
Can you tell me more about that?
Britain.
Why is that? Why has
Yeah.
that been the case? Why was that the case?
Because people are coming in on really with very little skills. So
No, why?
we've got a very
Why?
simple-
Why do they allow that? Why do they allow that
I'll
for skilled
explain.
worker visas?
Because they've lost control of the border system, and this same thing is
No,
happening.
it's not because they've lost control of the border system. It's part of the policy.
They have. I'll
No, they
explain
have
to you
not.
why.
What are you talking about?
They have
not in the-
expanded. They have expanded the level. They've expanded They've expanded skilled visas to include very low skilled professions. So, for
Who
example, in
expanded them? Who
Australia,
expanded skilled visas?
yeah, the Tories, I'm pretty sure, did it.
Okay. And do you know why things like people who work in nail salons and car washes, why they got included to skilled worker visas? Why does that happen?
I think it shouldn't happen. It's a disaster.
No,
Tell me
why does it happen? It
Well, you
happens
tell me why.
it's an exemption because of shortages.
Yeah,
Because
you
we've
shouldn't
had low
take-
because we've had low unemployment for years now
Okay,
in the UK. We've had
so
like
you
less
think-
than 5%
okay.
unemployment.
Okay, can you? So your position is literally that Britain should provide skilled worker visas for people to do car washes and nail salons.
Well, we've stopped doing that now. Did you know that?
Okay, well, it's good that you stopped it. It's obviously a disaster that it happened, correct?
How is it a disaster? Why? Why is it a disaster?
Well, why is it good for the British economy to import large amounts of low-skilled visa holders?
Well, I believe they did it because of shortages. That was why the standard salary requirement gets
okay.
lowered.
Well, what you know what Boris actually said? Boris said recently in an interview that he was pressured by HM Treasury to bring in large numbers of people to hold down wage growth. So he literally was saying it's very open. It's to hold down.
He
the
was
wage
pressured
growth.
to hold down wage growth. Are you kidding me?
That's it. That's
Boris
literally
said
true.
so, eh? Boris Johnson,
Yes.
the absolute,
Yes.
the epic human failure who was behind the policy, made an excuse. That's good. It worked on someone.
But well, he literally said, well, yeah, he's retarded. I think Boris is retarded. Of course I do.
But you buy
he literally said-
his explanation. You're very convinced by the explanation
no,
because it suits you. It suits your ideology, right? Yeah, it's convenient
Wait,
to say it was to push down wages.
Sorry. Okay, why would I disbelieve him? It makes him look shit for saying that. So he's saying openly that the policy.
No,
was
it
designed to
doesn't.
pull
He's
down
blaming
British wages.
someone else, and he's also using it to again fuel the right-wing agenda to say it was about wage suppression.
Well, he's blaming HM Treasury. I blame him for listening to HM Treasury. The whole thing is retarded. And look, it's a real thing. In Australia, we had the same thing. In Australia, there was a massive campaign by the Business Council of Australia to let in 2 million migrants post-COVID because they literally openly said that wage growth was too high.
This might be the first person I've ever seen in the UK who trusts Boris Johnson's word on one of his own failures. That's insane. You wouldn't integrate at all here.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand, right? Boris saying this does not make Boris look good. He looks like a retard. He looks like a traitor to Britain. He said that he's brought people in to hold down wage growth. So of course I'm going to believe him when he's saying something that makes himself look shit.
He's saying someone else made me do it, as opposed to it was my own failure, my own incompetence.
Yeah, but everyone blames him. Yeah, of course, everyone saw that and said no one's blaming HM Treasury for that. They're blaming Boris for doing that. They're saying Boris is a cunt for doing that. It makes Boris.
You understand that? You understand that even before
it's an excuse by Boris. He's saying these people made me hold down wage growth, and I had no choice but to hold down wage growth. And I look at that and I say, wow, he held down wage growth. What a terrible person. He's a traitor to Britain.
That's fine. That convinces you. That's fine. Well done.
I'm sorry.
You understand that. You understand that these.
I don't understand. Lonerbox, explain this, right?
Just
it makes Boris look bad. So why would I disbelieve it? I look at Boris saying, I brought people into this country because we wanted to try hold down wage growth. I look at that and I say, this makes Boris look like a horrible traitor to Britain. So why would I disbelieve him there?
I do want to.
It makes him look bad.
Yeah, I do want to kind of get this back to the portion of this debate is on culture specifically. right? But we've gotten to economics for some reason, I think.
I mean,
But,
but it doesn't even explain.
Well, Drew does
You're
seem
saying,
to be quite interested in the economic argument. So
I mean, but
Drew.
I am actually interested though. Like, can you explain Lonerbox? Like, like Boris literally said, we did it to hold down wage growth. That makes him look shit.
I
So
can't.
why would I lie?
I'm sorry. I don't know. I cannot explain why a politician who made a
Dude, I heard
well, hold on. Let Lonerbox
made a
answer.
huge
You gotta
song
let
about-
Lonerbox answer. You gotta let Lonerbox answer. You've asked him.
I'm sorry.
You gotta let him
I
answer.
can't actually explain. I can't explain why a politician who had a huge song and dance about immigration causes wage suppression, despite the fact that his own study wasn't able to prove it beyond like a 1% change that was only temporary, would fuck up his immigration policy post Brexit so bad that it resulted in the biggest wave of net migration that we've ever had, and then going into an interview and saying, "Oh yes, actually, it was the Treasury that made me do it. So not me, not my failure, not my incompetence." And yeah, I have no idea why you would say that. That's crazy. Yeah.
This is just proof that Lonerbox is a debate pervert, because I actually tuned into your stream before I came on, and you literally said that the Boris wage was due to wage inflation in the UK. So you literally admitted it on your own stream. Like
The
Boris wave was due to wage inflation.
No, you said due to inflation, due to shortages, all this stuff.
Wait, so it's not. Wait,
admitted-
so it's not what I said about it being due to wage inflation? Do you think so? Wait, are you telling me that I said on this stream that the Boris wave was so they could suppress wages?
No, you said on your stream that the Boris wave was because of inflation. Now, the inflation was linked to wage growth, correct?
The Boris wave was not. I've
just
never
real
said
quick.
the Boris wave was because of inflation.
Real quick. Hey, housekeeping, real quick. Someone get me the clip of what Lonerbox said, and we'll play it. Okay, get me the clip.
It was. You can try find it. It was on his stream.
I'll just have my audience do it. Let my audience do it.
It doesn't even make any sense. I mean, you don't even.
I think it was about 30 minutes in. It was about 30 minutes in, and it was around the time when you started bringing up your debate notes onto the screen. So
it doesn't even make sense. It's not. Well, so it would be on my debate notes. My debate notes are all about I've got lots about the Boris wave here. I've got about the healthcare visas, the skilled worker visas.
It wasn't in your debate notes. You mentioned it as an aside when you first brought it up. It was about 35 minutes in, and you said that the reason why so many people came into the country was due to inflation and shortages. Correct.
It was shortages is not the same as wage growth.
Okay.
Lonerbox. Shortages there's a need for workers, but we don't have the workers. That's a shortage.
Okay. Lonerbox, would you agree when there is a shortage of labor prices will go up?
Not always, no. Sometimes you can't hire people.
Yes.
And a lot of times, no. Sometimes you can't hire people, and those businesses just don't exist. And then sometimes you can have immigrants that come in, and they can be maybe sometimes they can be cheap. Say like the Greek Albanian story from the night. Like you can sometimes have that happen, and you can have cheap laborers come in, and then they can actually get jobs that would otherwise not exist, and then that allows people to start businesses that would otherwise not exist, and then that can open up new managerial positions for the local population. Economics are complex. It's not as easy as just if you increase the supply, then the cost will come. It's not like that. That's why Boris himself tried to investigate into wage suppression linked to immigration, and he couldn't find it. That's why that happened.
Okay. Can you explain why half of all social housing in London is made up of foreign nationals? Is that a good policy? Surely you have to say
when you say foreign nationals, do you mean people who have indefinite right to stay, or people on visas? What does that mean?
It's people who are migrants to Britain who are living in foreign housing. In
Britain. So I need to make sure that you understand how any of this works. Are these people on visas, or how long have they been here? Are they citizens? Are they indefinite right to stay?
Some of them may be citizens. Some of them may be indefinite right to stay. It's people who've come to Britain from another country.
Or so they could literally have got British citizenship and gone on housing, and you've got an issue with that.
Yeah, I do, because it's a choice to give people citizenship if they're actually not even able to economically contribute to the country.
How do you know they weren't able when they got citizenship? How easy is it, do you think, to migrate to the UK right now?
Unfortunately, under the Boris wave, it was too easy.
How easy do you think it actually wasn't as easy?
It must be pretty easy if half of social housing in London is made up of foreign nationals.
I have a question for my edification.
Social housing is a
Just real quick, I don't actually know the requirements to immigrate. Like, what current restrictions, if any, are there on English immigration? Like, if you want to immigrate to England,
Yeah,
if I
tell us-
wanted to
tell us what
immigrate
the
to England,
restrictions
Well,
are.
the
what are the
overwhelming
requirements?
the overwhelming majority of visas, you cannot get social housing or basically any welfare to when you immigrate. So if you're talking about foreign nationals, like this, a foreign national can literally be someone who's been working here and living here for like 20 years and then they got laid off. Like that can be, or a foreign national could be the child of a migrant who was here as a dependent and then they had to go in social housing.
The foreign national. So it's first generation born overseas immigrants.
Yes, a child can be first generation and then they can grow up. Yes, that can happen as well. The reason that we have like a high number of foreign...
and then they grow up and then they're in social housing in London. Can you explain that? Why?
They, as in what proportion of them? Most people work in the UK. If you're saying half
But
of
still,
like people,
half of all social housing in London is
a high number.
foreign nationals.
If there's a
That's
high number,
disaster.
if there's a high number of people on social housing who are foreign in London, it's because most people, like about half of people in London are foreign, aren't they? Like London is a very high foreign population.
Actually, this is a good question. Do you think it's a good thing that white English people only represent 20% of London?
20%?
It's about 1/4, something like that.
Last I saw, it was about 45 or something, not 20.
Let's get that. Let's make sure. I want to make sure I got the right stat. White English London stats. Oh, so white British is 25%, but I think it's whites about like it incorporates like, for example, like Poles and stuff like that as well.
White British incorporates Poles.
No. I'm saying
So what?
when you
I'm looking at this.
said 40% white.
So
saying
white
before,
as not white just overall is about 49.6%, whereas white British specifically is 24.9%.
Yeah.
Do you I don't think the other half of whites in London are like European whites. That because in terms of how you identify,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the way people identify their ethnicity or like identity, they can go with white or white British, and they might still just be British either way. Are you asking me if it's like a bad thing that London is
White
like
British
not
is
majority
23%.
white? Again,
No, not necessarily. I'm just saying, like, do you think it's a bad thing that London, which was a city founded by English people and has been English for 1,000 years, is no longer now majority English?
you would need to convince me why that's bad inherently.
Okay, you'd have to explain to us why it's good to make that massive demographic change, because the first time in 1,000 years, that's correct.
Well, I don't support demographic changes for their own sake. I support immigration because of economic
but
needs.
the immigration results in those demographic changes, and you have to try to explain why those demographic changes are good in a country.
Well,
that
no, you're
was
the
a
one.
nation
No,
for
you're the
1,000
one
years.
trying to prove that there's a problem. I'm standing from a
Well,
neutral. I'm neutral on
I think
demographics.
I think it is actually a problem if the capital city of your country that has existed for 1,000 years suddenly is no longer majority, the main.
But why? You've got to introduce that. You're introducing a positive claim. Why?
Why? Because English people founded London, and it is an English city. And it's sad if English people are no longer a majority in the capital that they founded.
Okay, give me an answer. London was founded by Romans, but give me an answer that's not just because, please.
Because I'm going to go into this. I think it's bad if English people become a minority in the country that is their homeland.
That's a circular answer again. Why?
In the same way that I think it would be bad if Jewish people were a minority in Israel.
What? Because they'll get genocided. Like.
Well, I think there could be a genocide of white English people in Britain in about 50, 60 years' time if there was to be a massive rise in the population.
Well, let me explore that. Drew, why do you think that there will be or possibly be a mass genocide of white British people in England?
Yeah, I'll explain.
In about 50, 60 years. Why? Yeah.
Because Islamic extremists in Britain, there are tens of thousands of them. There are 35,000 people on the terror watch list. They want to kill people. It's very open. They're very open about it. They go out and they kill people. And how many terrorist attacks have occurred already as a result of Islamic extremism? Many terrorist attacks have occurred as a result of Islamic extremism. Like, if you have a young Muslim migrant to the UK, go to Manchester Arena at an Ariana Grande concert and just blow up a bunch of young teenage girls for no reason, that is a genocidal act. That is literally an act of genocide against British people. And if that is occurring when the British Muslim population is like 6 or 7%, what do you think would happen if the British Muslim population was about 50%? There would be very scary situations.
That's your threshold for calling it.
Out
of interest, if an IDF soldier guns down like couple of Gazan civilians, or like say 10 of them, in a fit of rage because they're just really mad, like, and they come out war. Is that genocide?
I mean, in some cases, war crimes can be genocidal in nature. I think, for example, the Manchester Arena bombing, it is not an act of genocide, but it was a genocidal attack on British people.
It's not an act of genocide, but it's a genocidal attack.
No, I'm saying war crimes can be genocidal in nature. So, for example, if people are murdered simply because of the fact that they are English, or simply because of the fact that they are Palestinian, or simply because of the fact that they are Jewish, I think that's genocidal. I think October 7 attacks were genocidal. Lonerbox. I think it was genocidal. They went through the kibbutzim and slaughtered Jews simply because they were Jews. It wasn't necessarily an act of genocide overall because only 1,000 people were killed, but the attacks that Hamas waged on that day were genocidal in nature. And my belief is that if Hamas had won, if they had been able to break through the lines, they would have killed not just 1,000 Jewish people, but hundreds of thousands of Jewish people. You believe that Hamas are genocidal, correct? I believe that Hamas are genocidal.
I'm still just trying to get my head around saying that it's not a genocidal act, but it's an act of genocide. I have no idea.
No. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this because we both agree. We're both Zionists, correct? So let's talk about this. Do you agree with me that
are you a Zionist? Hold on. Are you a Zionist, Lonerbox?
When we talk about when we talk about defending like Israel, I defend Israel insofar as that I think people trying to destroy it are bad for everyone.
That's the same
you
with
defend
me.
Israel. No, you defend Israel because you have a bone to pick with Muslims. I don't suppose in that think tank that wants to radically destroy. I don't suppose it's part of that think tank that's about.
Are you mentally ill? You're literally mentally ill, dude. You're mentally ill. I've been. Dude,
I don't suppose you were literally
Lonerbox.
Muslims more murders than whites in the UK, did they?
Lonerbox, you are literally extremely mentally ill because I've actually been one of the highest profile supporters of like Israel's right to exist on social media over the past couple of years. And you're saying, oh, well, you don't care about Jews. You're only doing it because you hate Muslims. Oh. No, dude, that's actually extremely offensive. And it's actually really evil of you to say that. How about have some gratitude to me? They're like, look at the world right now. Like half of all these people, there are so many young people right now who like literally want to kill Jews everywhere.
This is just going to be an emotional rage.
But have some fucking gratitude.
It's always this though. It's always just like
but it's true
feelings.
Though. Literally, but dude, have some fucking gratitude. Look at how people have treated the Jews over the past couple of years. I'm actually an ally of the Jewish people, and you're just like, oh, you only care about Jews because you hate Muslims. That's extremely offensive. I've put my neck on the line. I got so many death threats from Hamas supporters and stuff like that over the past 2 years. And then you say, oh, you don't care about Jews. You're only doing it because you hate Muslims. That's extremely offensive. Like, how dare you? Honestly, how dare you?
I mean, you literally just asserted. You literally just tried to make it sound like there's like a higher murder problem of Muslims in the UK as well. I don't suppose that your Centre for Migration Control that is definitely not partisan. I don't suppose they gave you stats on that, did they? I thought we were agreeing that in overall crime as well as the more severe crimes, that Muslims were about equally represented, slightly more, mostly because they're younger. But now you're suggesting that they've got like genocidal capacities in the UK.
I'm saying the Manchester Arena bombing
Lonerbox, you don't have the cards.
I'm saying okay. Here's a good question. Lonerbox. Would you say that the young man Jihad al-Shami, who stabbed a bunch of Jewish religious adherents at the synagogue in Manchester, do you think that his act of murder was genocidal in nature?
No, murders are not genocide. That's not what genocide is. You don't know what genocide means.
Okay.
If you reinvent the word, sure, but
you're so fucking retarded. You're actually so fucking retarded. I'm not saying that it's a genocide because I understand that he killed only 2 people. What I'm asking you is this: do you think Jihad al-Shami, in his murder of those those people of Jewish faith in that synagogue in Manchester, do you think that if he had it in his power to kill not just 10 Jews but hundreds of thousands of Jewish people, do you think he would do it?
Are you asking me if he was like genocidal, like he had a genocidal mindset?
Yes, he
maybe.
did.
I don't.
Yes,
yeah, possibly.
Of course,
yeah.
That's my point, and that's what I was saying about the Manchester Arena bombing attack. The guy who did that had a genocidal mindset against English people.
But that's not what you said. You said that it was genocidal in nature.
I'm saying they have a genocidal mindset. Okay, it makes sense.
So
it makes sense.
You can change your words, and that makes more sense. But
that's what I meant the whole time. That's
okay.
All right. Okay. Do you agree with me that the Hamas attacks against Jewish
why did this question come up? It came up because I was asking you if you could show me that Muslims had higher murder rates in the UK.
No,
whites.
This came up because we were talking about demographics, and I said
you were making it sound like they had a genocidal capacity as an ethnic group. And I'm asking you, we have lots of white people who commit murder. We have some white people who commit acts that you would probably call genocidal in nature. You'd probably say that Darren Osborne was genocidal in nature, no?
Which one's Sharon Osbourne again?
The guy who rammed a vehicle into a mosque.
Yeah, that he has a genocidal mindset. Sure.
Okay, so that's not relevant to the question of which group has a higher murder rate or which one is a higher threat in terms of
I'm saying the problem is that there's been a successive drumbeat of Islamic terrorist attacks in Britain, carried out by men who do have genocidal mindsets against British people. In conjunction with that, you also have major Muslim influences in Britain, like Muhammad Hijab and Dili Hussein, who basically have genocidal mindsets against both Jews and British people. And that is the problem that I'm talking about, okay? And that's why when I said earlier that I think that the English people should remain a majority in England, I think it's similar to the fact that I want Jews to be a majority in Israel. Because I think that terrible things can happen when people become minority groups.
Apart from like the immigrants, I guess.
I don't
Becoming
understand.
minority groups.
But
I'm just wondering because
of course the immigrants
for some reason,
dude, let's just clarify that. Of course the immigrants are minority groups because they're immigrating to a country that is a different country to theirs. Of course they're a minority.
Yeah, but my point is that it's not a tragedy to be a minority inherently, is it?
Sometimes it can be a tragedy if you're a majority and you become a minority.
But not if you go to a country
In the
and you are
same
a
way,
minority as a migrant. Like,
well, the country exists prior to you going there, so you don't have a right to become a majority in that country. You're an immigrant there. The country exists before you go there. Of course, you're not going to be a majority if you're an immigrant to that country.
I feel like I'm trying. Okay, I'm just going to try really hard to keep on something factual. You said that this came up because your one issue that you could come up with this being like the problem of white British people becoming an ethnic minority in the UK is that they might get genocided in 60 years. Well, I'm saying, why is it that despite having like 6.5% of the population right now is Muslim, why is there...
There's massive terrorist attacks all the time. Yes, that's a big problem.
Terror attacks are like murders, right? Like that's what they're doing. Why is their crime rate, even for severe crimes, about the same as for whites? Why?
Okay. So do you think that Hamas just committed a bunch of murders? It's just a criminal act.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where was this whiplash? We're talking about the UK. We're talking about Muslims in the UK.
I'm talking about politically motivated violence here, retard. It's not just. I'm not just talking about ordinary incidents of crime. I'm talking about politically motivated violence. That's what's really scary.
Even if it's happening at a rate that's about representative, even if it's like the same for if it matches like white murder rates.
So politically motivated murders motivated by Islamic extremism are just occurring at a normal rate in Britain, a non-Muslim country. Is that your actual argument?
No, my argument is that you're calling them an existential threat to the UK, and I'm asking you, why would they be an existential threat?
I'm not saying Muslims are an existential threat. I'm saying Islamic extremists are an existential threat to the UK.
Okay, and I'm asking you, why are Islamic extremists in their actions such a minority of the Muslim population?
They're not a minority of the Muslim. That's the problem. Look at what happened with the Manchester synagogue attack. There were so many people who justified it and said that it was Zionism.
Okay. What percentage, just for my edification, because I don't know.
I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this with Lonerbox. You saw this just as well as I did, Lonerbox. There were plenty of Muslim influences in Britain who justified the Manchester synagogue terrorist attack on the grounds that they were Zionists. Correct.
Yes. If you want to have an
would you say that is an existential problem? Would you say that's an existential problem?
No, I don't think it's an existential problem. I think Britain has faced far
worse.
Of course it is. Britain has faced far worse than a few fucking like cringe, like terrorist fucking influencers living in the country. Yes, we have faced much worse than that. And
you're suicidal. You're literally, dude, you're literally suicidal. Dude, you're literally Jewish. You're literally suicidal at this point. You're happy with Islamic extremists living in Britain who want to kill you because you're Jewish. I don't understand it.
What do you mean happy with them living here? If you want to have a discussion about paradox of tolerance, that is actually an interesting discussion. The problem is that you're not equipped to have it because you don't even seem
to... It is paradox of tolerance. If you want to have a tolerant society, you can't have Islamic extremists in it.
So you have to deport everyone who you consider to be an Islamic extremist?
Yes.
How many? Hold on. Okay, I got a question. How many Islamic extremists exist now within Britain?
I would say basically everybody on the terrorist watch list. That's at least 35,000 people.
Okay. So why don't we just deport those guys, and why deport?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's literally what I would do. I would lower. This is my policy. I would lower migration by like 90% to allow people who are already in the country to assimilate, and then I'll go forward, and everyone who's committed a crime or anyone who has engaged in Islamic terrorism, who is engaged in Islamic extremism, who are on the terrorist watch list, who have done things like defend the Manchester synagogue terrorist attack, they would be deported. This is a good question. Lonerbox, do you think that Muslim extremists living in Britain who defended the Manchester synagogue terrorist attack, do you think that they should continue to live in Britain, or do you think they should be naturalized and deported?
I don't think you should deport someone right away for their speech, no.
Somebody who wants to kill you, who literally wants to behead you because you're Jewish.
Yeah, there are people who have incited riots and tried to kill people in this country who are locals as well. Yeah, I don't think deportation is
And they're
necessarily the right
you
answer
can't
to
deport
that.
locals. You don't deport locals because exactly they're locals. They're part of the problem. You're always going to have a criminal native element, unfortunately. But it is a choice to have foreign Islamic extremists in your country. Correct.
It depends on, because if you wanted to have like a huge discussion about whether or not you can be sending people away to different countries where they might get like tortured or killed, or if they can even get sent to any other different countries, yeah, that's a difficult question. But again, you're not equipped to have the paradox of tolerance opinion because you want to reduce migration by 90%. Like that's
Yes,
that's not
That's
not just
madness.
accounting. That's not just accounting for extremists. There's something different going on there.
You know, the current polling in Britain is like 80% want like significant cuts to migration and want mass deportations, in fact.
Yes, and like something like half of people in Britain think that there's more illegal immigration per year than legal.
And you know why that is the case? I'll explain to you why. They think that people coming to the country, even on legal visas, are illegals because they look at people in car washes and they go, surely we could not be giving legal visas to people to just do car washing.
No, they think that
That's
because
why.
Nigel
That's
Farage.
literally why. No, it's
they
not
think
because
that
of Nigel Farage. It's
Nigel
because
Farage
people
and the
have their
media
own
is
evidence of their
dominated
own
by
ideas.
hamming up what's going
No.
on. That's what's yes, because Nigel
No,
Farage
I'll
goes
explain
to
it
the
to you. I'll
coast
explain it.
with his
No,
little
no.
fucking Fisher Price binoculars and stares at people on boats all the time, and people think that's the biggest problem because it's
No,
dominating the story. Because it's
You're
easier
delusional,
to
dude.
see people
You're
coming in on boats.
Dude,
This happened in
you're
your
literally
country as well, in
delusional.
Australia. There were more people
Yes.
coming in by plane than there were coming in by boats, even before sovereign borders.
Yes.
But everyone
Yeah.
thought the boats were the problem because you could see it, because
Yeah.
people could film it and screech about it,
guess
even
what?
though
And guess-
most of it was coming by
Guess
plane.
what, Lonerbox? And guess what, Lonerbox? I've criticized the Liberal government for doing that in Britain because, in Australia, sorry, the Liberal government used it as a bait and switch because they cracked down on illegal boat arrivals, but they also massively increased legal immigration. And I have a problem with that because I want them to lower legal migration too. So it's not even a good argument against me because I'm literally saying it's a dumb thing to focus only on illegal migration while allowing massive amounts of legal migration to take place.
Yeah, so what's wrong with so out of interest then, for the legal migration system in the UK right now, what's wrong with the policies that we as they stand for legal migration?
Like there are people who are legally getting into the country who are not contributing. Half the social.
Here, let me ask you directly, Drew.
That's not about
Hold on,
the
just real
current
quick, Loner.
standards. People who are on social housing in London
What
could have been there for
restrictions?
decades.
Hold on. What restrictions on immigration that do not currently exist for Britain would you put? Like, what specific restrictions? Like, do you have to make so much a year? Do they have to wait for do a more severe background check? What current restriction on immigration that does not currently exist would you place to gatekeep who gets in?
Higher educational standards, higher income standards.
Okay, what standards?
And also very stringent social media background checks. You can't let anybody into the country who's justified October 7, Hamas, all this stuff. Lonerbox, do you at least agree with me on that?
What, the checks that we've had for a pretty long time?
No,
yeah.
but would you agree that it would be bad if people were allowed into the country who supported October 7 and Hamas?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay. But a lot of people have been allowed into the country who do support October 7 and Hamas. Do you agree that's a problem as well?
I mean, if we're talking about someone, like if we're talking about like some fucking student in like Germany or whatever who's made like a stupid fucking tweet, I don't really, again, like it's a balance, isn't it? You have to balance freedoms. You balance freedom of speech with your security of someone who's said some cringe shit on social media. Again, normally most people, like the 99.9999% of people who have quote unquote justified October 7th on their social media will never do any violent crime ever in their life. Right.
Okay.
There's a balance there, and you understand this as someone who cares about liberal values, right?
Here's the problem, Lonerbox. Here's the problem. You would agree. You would understand this problem just as much as me, right? The problem is this: even people who would not personally go out and literally slaughter the Yahud and behead somebody, it's still a problem if they're justifying it. It's still a problem because they create a permission structure that allows the most radical and extreme and psychotic people in their community to go out and do those crimes.
So anyone who supports like IDF war crimes or settler violence, they're not allowed in the UK either, right?
I mean, I don't necessarily have a big problem with that.
Yeah, you would just okay, fine.
Sure. I mean, sure. If this is the trade-off, if the trade-off is we're not going to allow Islamic extremists into Britain, but also Kahanists aren't allowed into Britain, I'm fine with that trade-off. I don't care.
So what's your problem with the current legal migration system as it stands right now? with our requirements?
Because on the current levels of migration in Britain, the English people will be a minority in England by about mid 2040s. That's the
Okay,
problem.
I don't think
It's
you
too
actually
large.
know.
It's too large. It's too
Okay.
large. The demographics are just too large. It's when you have migration at that level, it's impossible to assimilate people, and that's why you get this sort of incipient creolization that you're starting to see with like literally like
I don't
basically
know what
new
you mean by
dialects of English.
creolization.
Yeah, can you
There's
elaborate on
literally-
that? What
We're
does that
such a
mean?
dialect-rich country. We've had
there's literally
like
new English.
migrant dialects in the UK for decades. It's
Yeah, but there's literally new English, there's literally new languages basically forming in Britain. Does that indicate that people are assimilating when people are literally in enclaves and they're literally forming new
Hold on,
languages?
the English of
based on the fact
1,000
that they're
years
so
ago is
segregated from the English?
fundamentally different than the English today. Is that a problem?
Yeah, exactly, dude. And that's over 1,000 years. It's not in just 20 years. That's the problem, the pace of change. If in 1,000 years' time there was different changes to the English language, I've got no problem with it happening over 1,000 years. I'm saying it's a problem when it's compressed into a 20-year time span.
this is. I have no idea what I'm talking to right now. We've had the development of migrants speaking slightly different with like accents and dialects in London since
not just
the
accents, like,
60s, 70s, 80s. Have you
It's
been
not
to the
just- it's not
UK?
just an
Like,
accent.
what is this
Yes,
dialect you're talking
multiple-
about?
Dude, like multicultural London English is like literally almost unintelligible in some ways from standard English.
So is fucking Ouija speak. I don't. What are you talking about? That is.
I'm just saying, like,
but that's not.
like,
but that's not a new
I-
thing.
but
That's
my-
not the
my problem-
multicultural
but this is the
London
thing.
speak. Whatever you call it. It's not a
This is
new
the thing.
thing.
This is the thing. It's not even necessary. I'm not even putting shit on that necessarily dialect because I get your point where you're saying, well, there's lots of different dialects and stuff like that. I'm not even putting shit on that dialect. The only reason I'm bringing that is to point to the fact that the migration numbers are so large that assimilation is not necessarily occurring. The migration rate is happening at such a high rate that literally new dialects are forming because of the large number of migration.
Yeah, but that's
So
the
it's
thing.
not-
It's like, what is
so
this?
this
What
is
is
the
this
thing.
complaint?
So-
It's like, oh, because some of them speak are
complaint-
speaking English slightly funny. Like, I don't understand. It's such a non.
Are you retarded?
issue.
Dude, are you actually are you retarded? It is an issue because when you talk about assimilation, it's people absorbing into the mainstream majority English culture. But when people are literally forming their own dialects because they live in a segregated society, that is not assimilation. By definition, it's not assimilation. There are
that's
literally.
why I'm asking you.
I've looked at the data. There are literally there are literally streets and suburbs in Birmingham where there are literally like less than 1 or 2% white English people in those streets and suburbs. That is a problem. That's not even multicultural.
Why is
That's
it
just
inherently a
sectarianism.
problem? Why is it inherently a problem?
Because England is a country for the English people. English
It's
people
just
should have a
because
homeland.
again. It's just circular. It's just because there's no
Okay,
tangible
why-
anything.
ex-
Why should I
explain-
care? Tell me,
explain-
why should I care more about this than the NHS or about the economic growth or about
Why should you
security
even
and
care
defense?
whether?
Like,
Why should you even care whether the English nation even exists? The English people should have a nation. It's their homeland. Why would I would be sad if
They still do
if
have a
Jewish
nation.
people were 2% of it. No, not if there are some parts of this like their major cities where they're literally not even 1% of the population. That's
out of
not even
interest,
multicultural.
who do you think
That's
is
pure
which
sectarianism.
which demographic do you think gets more privileged in London, say like economically, familial, whatever? Do you think it's like the English people in London or the Bangladeshis or the Indians or the
I mean, I'm
Pakistanis?
sure because
What
of
a wind
like
rush.
ancestral- I'm sure because of generational wealth transfers and stuff like that, the white English are probably still the wealthiest in London.
Just
But
because of
that's just-
generational wealth?
Well, yeah, but that's because of literally the fact that English people have been a majority in England for 1,000 years. So you would expect them to be wealthier, wouldn't you? Why would they not be wealthier if
It's
they've
not just
literally been
because of
the majority for
generational
1,000
wealth.
years?
It's also because it's like it is the country that they live in. Is it the country that they're familiar with? Is that they are better? They have more social connections. It's easier for them to make social connections. Yeah, there's a lot of
Yes,
that's
because
the
it's their
point. I'm
country.
just saying. But
Because
they're a
it's their country,
minority.
dude.
But they're a
Because it's their
minority in London. But they're a minority in London, right? And they've got a Muslim mayor. You know, but it seems like they still managed to come out on top.
I still don't think London's necessarily a good example of integration and assimilation.
Compared to, would you rather it was like compared to where? What city? Like which country?
It's probably
Tokyo.
better than like Paris. It's probably better than Paris. Like the Benelux of Paris are fucked up, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily good compared to, I don't know, like, yeah, exactly, Tokyo. Tokyo like has much lower crime rates, much more social cohesion. And also, it is culturally like a Japanese person from 500 years ago would be able to recognize the culture of Japan today. Obviously, there'd be technological developments, but the culture would be roughly recognizable. Whereas somebody from 500 years ago in England would.
We're
not
like
even
less than
recognize-
100 years off of imperial Japan in terms of recognizing the culture. Japan's changed quite a lot, even in recent history.
Not yeah.
They
but
would
there's
not.
still-
They would not recognize the Japan.
Yeah,
of
look.
500 years ago.
Hold on.
Comfortable, you know? What the fuck?
A Japanese
No,
guy from
like-
the hold on. The Japanese guy from the 1930s coming to 2025, Japan would commit seppuku. I mean, they would be like,
No,
this
they wouldn't.
country's
No, they
just
wouldn't.
done.
Dude,
It's dead.
there's still the essential cultural continuity of Shinto as the majority religion. There's the essential cultural continuity of the language, of the demographics. They look around and the country is still ethnically Japanese. Whereas somebody who was ethnically
Then
English,
they
who
looked
came
at all
to
the
England,
anime
who
shit.
came to
and
London.
Be like,
Okay.
crazy.
Okay, here's a good question though. Here's a good question. Imagine you could transport Shakespeare 500 years into the future and he's walking through Tower Hamlets. Would he think that London had been conquered by a foreign nation?
Conquered.
Yes. What would he?
I don't know what he would think. He would be so far removed from like 50 billion different. He'd probably be looking at the tube and being like, "Wow, it goes so fast." Yeah, I don't know.
I think he would probably.
You think?
Okay.
Do you think he'd rather live in all? Do you think he'd rather live in all white English England or today?
No, that's not even necessarily my argument. I'm just saying he would probably be pretty surprised that.
Well, no, because
London,
it does. Because
the
it seems like you
demographics of
want
London
to
have
put.
been terraformed, have been completely terraformed.
It seems like you want to put our economic well-being and our healthcare system and our welfare system. You want to put that behind the demographic and the aesthetic of the country.
Well, not even the aesthetic of the country, just the cultural continuity of the nation.
Okay, I have a question for Lonerbox.
I'll explain to you. I'll explain to you.
Just real quick.
I think this is. I'll explain to you.
Okay, explain real quick. Then I have a question for Lonerbox, and I have a question for you.
In the context of Australian politics, for example, I care more about the fact that in 60, 70 years' time, my children would live in a culturally recognizable Australia. I care about that more than, for example, debates over whether tax should be raised 2% or lowered 2%. Because the essential cultural continuity of the nation is something that's very important to me. And I think it would be bad. Like, do you think? Okay.
Or about whether or not we can have a functioning healthcare system for our old people.
Okay. Lonerbox. What do you think is a more important question in Israeli politics? Whether the tax rate should be raised 2 or 3%?
I don't know why you keep trying to appeal to Israel. Israel is a country with so much more unique challenges than the UK. Like you know full well that Jews do not have the same experience with demographics as fucking white people in England. It is not a comparable experience. Why are you doing that?
Dude, this is hold on.
No, because we're both
This is
Zionists.
part of my
I'm
this is
appealing to a
part of my
common
question for
standard
Lonerbox. Actually,
Do you
It's a
think I'm
common standard in the fact-
Jewish, Drew?
Well, I know you're a Zionist, so we're both Zionists.
A Zionist in what sense? In what? That I think Israel shouldn't be destroyed. That's as far as it
I'm the
goes for
same.
me.
That's me. Same with me too.
So just because I think Israel shouldn't be destroyed because Jews are in a very unique position in the world does not mean that I'm going to tremble at the thought of like demographics shifting in somewhere like the UK, as they already have in certain cities.
But it hasn't resulted in good things in these cities.
If you're going to talk about demographics,
Do you think it's a good thing?
Do you think it's a good thing that
Jewish? Do you think it's a good thing that Jewish
demographics is just about it's your ethnic makeup, it's your origin, your national origin. It can be about culture and preferences, but you'd have to show me why there is a specific reason why this or that demographic can't be a minority. I can make that case.
Okay, hold on. No, I'm gonna throw flag on the play because this question goes directly to his point, and then I'm going to question for you, Drew, and we'll bring you back in, I promise. Lonerbox. Okay. Do you understand why, again, historically, when a culture or a group has gone from the majority to the minority, they usually get less wealthy, less favorable conditions under the law. They tend to be persecuted to various degrees. You can understand why a person who is in the current majority might not want to become a minority. Could you understand
Actually, sorry. I just worked out. I actually didn't realize this in Lonerbox. Sorry, I genuinely thought you were Israeli, but you're Lebanese instead. Sorry, I didn't realize.
We all look the same, man.
It's all, they all look.
Well, I'm Cypriot.
I don't see color.
I mean, we're literally
ethnicity,
Levantine.
actually.
No, but we actually literally.
I do want Lonerbox to answer my question though.
What about being a minority?
Yes, you understand why someone who is currently in the majority makeup of a country might have issues or fears or problems with becoming a minority because of, again, historically, when you go from majority to minority, when you go from majority to minority, you usually get less wealthy. You usually have a lot more persecution under the law and things like that, and you less favorable to you overall. So you can understand why someone might be hesitant about that.
I think it depends on quite a few. There's nothing inherent that guarantees that, right? So it depends on how you manage it. It depends on how you manage
it has
like
tended
immigration.
to be the case over history. Not every time, but a majority.
Okay. At the same time, that happens in the UK, even if we stop migration completely. White people in the UK don't have as many babies as foreign-born people. But again, there's always this problem with projecting a current trend into perpetuity. So people make those estimates that Drew did about 2075, whites will be an ethnic minority in Britain.
It's not
That's if
2075.
we-
It's like 2040. No, it's like the mid 2040s.
I looked up.
Like,
I looked up the
literally within
article.
20
I looked up the article. It's
No, it's literally
2075.
It's mid 2040s. It's literally
In some
we can-
portion of the future.
it's
Got
fine.
it. Okay, we'll go on.
Yeah.
No,
The
it's
fact
actually,
is that
No, let Lonerbox answer
Yes?
my question, then I'll
Sorry,
ask you a
sorry,
question,
sorry,
Drew.
sorry.
I
Okay,
promise.
okay.
Okay, you gotta
yes,
let Lonerbox
in
finish.
15 years, we will
Yeah.
be less than 49% fucking native born. Okay, sure. The fact is that when you project a current trend into perpetuity, say an unprecedentedly high spike of net migration, which has already been cut in half within a year. If you take that and you also take into account birth rates, which are also declining for locals as well as for migrants, because when migrants come here, they actually, they have less babies than they would when they're in their host country. That's because, like, despite what a lot of people say, they do generally become a little bit more like us. Even in terms of, that's what I said about the grooming gangs, they commit similar crimes to us because doing that, like taking young girls into a car with alcohol and drugs, and that's what locals do in the UK. That's what local
No, it's not, dude.
abusers
It's
do in the
literally
UK.
not. That's fucking insane. It's literally.
You don't live in the UK, Drew. You've not grown up in the UK.
Okay.
You don't know. You don't know.
Lonerbox. It is literally a fact that some of the ringleaders who were convicted in court screamed in court that they did it because the girls were white British.
Yes, because someone screamed at a girl calling her a white slag in court. That does not change the overall nature of the crime.
No, they literally admitted that it was racially based. It wasn't just that they were white slag. They said we did this because the white British raised their kids as sluts.
Really?
That's what he said.
Okay. So that changes the entire nature of the crime. Then
I think they were genocidal. I think the mindset was genocidal. I think the mindset was genocidal.
Oh, it's genocidal
It was.
grooming. Okay, I see. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the rape gangs were the mindset behind the rape gangs was genocidal. 100%, 1,000%.
Believe it or not, and this is probably why all the people who write these reports did not say that, Drew, the professionals who actually understand these criminals and these people and the victims, people abuse and rape for the same reason that every ethnic group does it generally. It's because they think they can get away with it. It's because they like power. It's because we're fucking animals at the end of the day.
Okay. Let me dispute that.
Right.
Let me dispute that. Here's a quote. The ringleader of the
grooming gang.
Let me explain this. The ringleader of the fucking listen to me. The ringleader of the Pakistani men convicted of child rape in Rochdale, quote, "We are the supreme race, not these white bitches. White people trained these girls to be so much more advanced in sex." Like, he literally said he's the supreme race. Do you think that's not a genocidal mindset? Of course it's a fucking genocidal mindset, dude.
I don't think you know what genocide means, but you can keep saying it like it's your... That's fine.
Oh my God.
Okay.
You're actually retarded. I'm saying the mindset is genocidal.
You're speaking in...
Okay.
I don't...
Do you deny the quote? The quote is this. We are the supreme race, not these white bitches. Do you think calling yourself the supreme race in the context of raping somebody is a genocidal mindset?
One of these days, I will stop being randomly purity tested by fucking idiots who don't know what genocide means.
I'm giving you a good example. You can't answer. You can't answer because I'm fucking right. I'm right, so you can't answer.
No, I don't think that's what genocide is. That's not what the crime and the
I'm not saying that it's genocide. I'm saying it's a genocidal mindset.
Okay.
It's genocidal in mindset.
I gotta make a little money.
Genocide. I'm saying that the mindset behind it is genocidal because he said he's the supreme race.
Okay.
Isn't all bigotry then genocidal mindset to you?
No, this is another level to just bigotry on the streets because this is somebody who raped somebody who
So it's
literally
the act
organized
as well,
a
but you're
child
saying
rape
it's just the
gang.
mindset.
The
So anyone who
act
commits a hate
coupled with
crime,
the
anyone
mindset-
who like assaults someone because they're black is genocidal now?
You're actually retarded. He organized a child rape gang, and then he said in the context of that child rape gang that he was the superior race, and that he did it because he believed he was the superior race. That is a genocidal mindset. Do you not agree?
I feel like I'm sort of like telling a mentally ill person that their feelings are invalid. I don't understand. That's not what the word genocide means.
I can't help you if you're retarded.
Okay, well, what we're gonna do now.
Okay, no. Let me ask one question. Okay, Lonerbox. If a white British person carried out a rape gang targeting people of another ethnicity, and then he said in court, "I did it because I believe that I'm the superior race," and that we're the supreme race and that we are entitled to do it, would you say that the mindset behind that is genocidal? It is so fucking obviously genocidal.
Do you think I'm going to flip my answer because you made the offender white?
But it's true though, dude. If a white guy did that, if a KKK guy did that, okay, fucking facts. If a KKK guy did that in the South, in the United States South, in like the fucking Jim Crow era, and he literally said, "I'm raping people because I believe I'm the supreme race," everyone would say that guy's fucking genocidal in his mindset.
So if someone rapes a woman because he thinks that women are like kind of objects just to be used for male pleasure, is that genocidal as well?
I'm talking about the fact that they brought the racial element into the equation means that their mindset was genocidal.
So if it's racial, it's genocidal, but not if it's on gender or on ethnicity nationality. Religion.
Do you agree that the rape of Nanking, when the Japanese soldiers raped people in the city of Nanking, it was a genocidal act? It was basically born out of a genocidal hatred towards Chinese people.
Yes. Why do you think that's different from a groomer committing a domestic crime?
I'm saying that a Pakistani ethnic supremacist who literally declares that he's doing rape gangs in the UK because he believes he's the supreme race, that is a genocidal mindset in the same way that the rape of Nanking comes from a genocidal mindset.
Okay, yes, the groomers are genocidal. What changes exactly?
I'm saying that the mindset behind the guys.
No, what change? Why is that concession so important to you? I'm just curious.
Of course it changes, because if there are people doing genocidally,
why does that change?
Because if there are genocidal motivated rapes in Britain, I think there's a big problem if white ethnic English become a minority in their own country, because there are people who are carrying out rape gangs in Britain against white English kids based off a genocidal mindset. So I therefore think it would be bad if white English people became a minority in their own country.
Okay. I do want to get
That's
to super
true.
chats.
What's wrong with that statement? Tell me what's wrong with that, please, Lonerbox.
I do want to get to
Nothing's wrong with
super
that.
chats real quick, and I got to make a little money. So if you have a question or a comment for either of these two gentlemen or for me, please send in your money. Helps the stream, keep the stream up and running, all that stuff. Here's $5 from Lawson Harrison to say, "Go eat your mound of cornflakes." So thank you for that $5, I suppose. $10 from Fancy Teeth to Drew. "Admit it, Drew. You don't care about the crime itself. You care about the perceived affront to the quote-unquote soul of Britain. You are projecting on the victims." Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. The leader of the Pakistani rape gang in Rochdale said that he did it because he believed he was the supreme race. He has a genocidal mindset. So I therefore think that racially motivated rapes against children in Britain because they are white, I think that's a really negative thing for a nation. I think if foreigners are coming to a nation and they're carrying out genocidally motivated rapes, they're carrying out rapes based off the idea that they are the supreme race, I think that's an existential problem for a nation. Existential, of course it is.
So because one or two foreign rapists.
Because the ringleader, dude. He was the ringleader of the rapes in Rochdale. He was the ringleader.
I know the other guys would never
ringleader.
have raped. The other guys would never have raped without the ringleader telling them to do it. Right? Yeah. Like what were they like the soldiers?
He organized the child rape gangs, and he said in court that he did it because he believed he was the supreme race. I think that's an existential problem for England as a nation, that there are foreign nationals coming to Britain, refusing to assimilate, and then carrying out sexual violence based off the idea that they are a superior race to the English people.
And because this guy who was jailed, that means we should stop getting Muslim immigration into the country, because
I think people need to be
from
extremely
Rochdale.
There needs to be much harsher vetting. Much harsher, not 20 years ago.
Harsher vetting.
Much harsher vetting.
Harsher vetting. These were second generation immigrants.
That's worse if they're
second generation.
Can you understand? That's worse if they're second generation immigrants, because the second generation is supposed to be assimilated. The second generation is supposed to be assimilated because they're born here. If they're still not assimilated to the extent that they're carrying out rapes based on the idea that they are actually the superior race, that's a fucking disaster for immigration.
Why do you keep saying they about you're talking about a group of offenders, less than a couple of dozen of them out of hundreds of thousands of people. Why do you keep saying they to apply to a group of immigrants? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Because they operated with impunity.
That's a very genocidal generalization that you just made. That to the entire group of people.
They operated with impunity, retard. They operated for like 20 years with nobody stopping them. They had to have been widespread knowledge in the Pakistani communities. There had to have been. It's so obvious. It was so out there in the open. And there's all these stuff, like, for example, the J report into the grooming.
Yes, I understand that this would probably be the very first time in British history where someone got away with raping and a bunch of people knowing about it for a long time.
But they're racially
serious?
motivated rapes. That's why it's worse, retard. They're racially motivated rapes.
No one who is a professional who has ever worked in this field, who has ever produced any of these reports you're talking about, has described these as racially motivated
Because they're
rapes.
retarded. Because they're literally retarded.
Because they're, or maybe because they have a better understanding.
You can read.
Maybe because they have a better understanding of why rapists rape.
Read the court transcripts. The ringleader literally said he did it because he believed he was the supreme race.
I don't think you even understand the case. Do you
Okay.
know why?
Let's go
do you know
through
why
it.
that? Do you know why that matters?
Hey, Lonerbox, let's go through it, okay? So a guy comes in. He's convicted of leading a rape gang. He says that he does it because he's the supreme race. And then the authorities go, we can't tell why he did it. They're doing that because they're trying to avoid race riots, retard. And that's been there in all the reports. All the reports found that they deliberately, over time, systematically, over decades, the recent report that was released in June said that there was systematic underreporting and shying away from the fact of the ethnic perpetrators because they wanted to avoid community unrest. This is there in the report.
To avoid community unrest was to do with publicizing the case before everything had been pulled together.
Even before that. Even before. No, that's wrong.
You're lying. You're just lying.
Hold on. Both of you shut up. Both of you shut up. Lonerbox can respond, and then you can continue, Drew. But Lonerbox gets a response. Go ahead.
This is just a lie. There's nothing in that report that says that they withheld or suggests even that they withheld a hate crime charge or a genocidal mindset charge or whatever the fuck because they didn't want to cause cultural. How would that even make sense? How would that even make sense?
Let me talk. I'm
not finished.
Hold on, Drew. Once he's finished, you can respond uninterrupted. I promise you. Finish your statement, Loner. Finish your statement, and then Drew can respond. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt your interruption, but no, the reason that Jay and Casey and all these people who do these reports have never said that they did this because of a genocidal mindset or because it was a racially motivated rape. The reason that they don't say that is not because they are trying to de-racialize the issue. Why would that make any sense? These reports are literally the reason that you know that people avoided the case because they wanted to avoid race riots. That report, the Jay report, calls out the council for being too overly sensitive about race issues. That's what the report said. So why would Jay not say that this was a genocidal act if it actually was, or a genocidal mindset, or a hate motivated crime? It makes no sense. Why would Jay not say it?
Okay, now you can respond, Drew. Go ahead.
Okay, for fuck's sake. The reports found that these crimes were known about in the local community for a very long time, and police shied away from even charging people and dealing with this crime because they were scared that they would be race riots. So the reports show that there has been a systematic problem whereby, in order to avoid race riots and community tension, the British authorities have essentially looked the other way. Given that widespread culture of looking the other way, I don't expect that the independent report is going to come out there and say these were racially motivated crimes. They're not going to say that because they know that's an explosive claim. But I can see from the actual transcripts of the guys who did it, who said in court that they did it because of racial reasons, that I can see with my own eyes that it was racially motivated. That's my problem, okay?
But you ignore. So Jay was willing to call out the council for avoiding race issues. She was willing to call out the police, the small handful of police officers who said that they were avoiding it because of race. Jay was willing to do that, but she wasn't willing to call it a racially motivated crime.
Why they're not going to do that? Yes, they're not going to do that.
But she's willing to make the explosive claim, which was that they were doing it out of political correctness and to avoid racial sensitivity. She's willing to make those claims, but not to say that it's a racially motivated crime. Why is one more explosive than the other?
Lonerbox, do you really think that anybody in the British state is capable of going out there and saying that Pakistani men raped English girls because they were English? No one is going to say that because they know it would lead to race riots. But the reality is that is actually
it already did lead to race riots.
It would be significantly worse. And here's the problem though: the actual ringleaders said in court that that's why they did it.
So you think Jay is avoiding calling it?
I'm not blaming Jay. I don't think anyone could say it. I don't think anyone could say it. I'm not blaming Jay. I don't think
because
it's too explosive.
So why did she write the report at all? The report was explosive. The report called out racial sensitivity.
Yes, but it's another level to say that Pakistani men in these towns are explicitly raping people because they're English. That's another level of explicit.
So you can say that,
Yes.
so you can write a report that basically implicates cops for avoiding helping rape victims for years because they're afraid of political correctness or whatever the fuck. She's allowed to do that. She's allowed to also give a billion other reasons in that report for why they neglected those victims. I don't suppose you know what those other reasons are or care about them. Do you actually? Do you know, since we're off of the... Do you know why? For example, the unwillingness for the council to pay attention to it because of racial issues, or the cops.
Yeah,
I think a couple of
the council was dominated by Muslim councillors.
I think a couple of cops saying that they didn't want to pursue it because they were afraid of political correctness, even though most of the other cops actually said that there wasn't an issue with going after race, because they go after black people all the time. Why would they care? In the 2000s of all times, right? What were the other issues that she called out?
There was
Bigger,
also the problem
actually.
that there was also the problem that poor white working class English girls were systematically treated with sexism by the British police and the institutions of the British state. They basically, a lot of them were written off as sluts, and that's a disgusting thing.
Yeah, what else?
That's the main explosive thing, that the British state also just massively failed these girls by basically saying, oh well, they're all sluts. That was disgusting.
So the failures of the police, the failures of the police was one of two fairly systematic issues, and it wasn't political correctness. Political correctness was not seen as a primary issue. I just wonder if you know what the other one was.
There was the class-based issue that the girls were basically...
No, but I know the class-based issue, but what else? There was another one. There's another big one.
Tell me the other one. Tell me.
Why do you know? Okay, the fact that you don't know tells me everything.
No, because I haven't read the report in 6 months, okay? That's why I don't know it off the top of my head.
Well, it gets a lot more pages and words on it than the fucking political correctness thing does. But anyway,
I read the whole report. I read
it's
it 6
about
months
how
ago,
there was
so
a failure of councils and authorities to build any bridges or outreach options for victims. The fact was that cops occasionally did look into those communities. The problem was that they had no idea where to go or who to speak to. And there were actually women in that area, specifically women, who did actually want to make contact and did have information, but there just wasn't enough of a connection or like an outreach place there wasn't any safe places for victims to go. That's why one of the... You can call the people who made the report that you are relying on coping, but it is a fact.
I'm saying it's a helpful report. It's not everything.
As it is actually the case for quite a lot of people, is that the issue with foreign communities, like you say, communities that are a bit more insular, a bit more enclosed, but that we know less about them. The issue that happens there, and this is also the same thing that happens with Sharia councils, is that it's difficult for the state to get involved, and they don't make enough effort to get involved, because there is a lack of outreach from our middleman between victims and authorities. And that's why some of the recommendations that always comes out of these reports is not to investigate genocidal mindsets of the Muslim migrants. It's to give victims and a place where they can actually go to talk to people so that they can get in front of authorities and get their claims heard, and also to give the authorities, say the police, a better understanding of these communities so they know who to talk to and how to get trust out of them to get information from them. That is significantly seen as more important in these reports than the genocidal mindset of the offenders or the political correctness of a few cops who were just looking for an excuse. But you don't care about that because your priority is not victims. Your priority is making Britain more British.
Lonerbox, do you think that there were any cultural problems in the Pakistani community that perhaps led to their overrepresentation?
Way to just dodge the fucking point completely, but yes, of course there are yes, of course there are problems in certain immigrant communities. Yes,
sorry, one second. Sorry, I dropped something.
Okay.
What did he drop? I don't know. Been a spirited debate so far.
Oh, also, Wick, in case you were wondering, the point of that reference of him talking about like raping his victim because of they're white and they're more submissive or like more sexually available. That's because the profiling of these grooming gangs was to literally JCPOA, the other one of the original studies from 2010, they separated these gangs into two groups. There was one which was the pedophile rings who specifically targeted kids because they were underage, like they had a specific interest in children. And then there was type 2, which was the most of the Muslim grooming gangs fell into, which was sexual opportunism. So when he's saying that like we went after them, these people, we chose them because they're white and they're like slags and all that shit. Like the reason that was brought in was because the typical profiling of these groups is that they are sexual opportunists, that they would go around in cars mostly at night and offer young girls like alcohol and drugs and favors and gifts and try to like woo them in so that they could eventually start like abusing them and taking advantage of them. And obviously when they were out at night, the people who they typically had access to because of demographics and also because like Muslim parents are more strict and everything, the people that they had access to were white girls. That's why that comes in. It's because they were seen as sexual opportunists. That's what professionals assess them as. But anyway,
Sexual opportunists, but there was
genocidal sexual opportunists. I'm so sorry. Yeah, they just missed that.
Well, literally, the ringleader in Rochdale literally said he did it because he believed he was the supreme race. Are we just going to ignore that? That's a pretty explosive thing.
Okay.
Why is it a pretty okay, whatever.
I have more.
Actually, no.
I don't know.
I guess
hang on.
Let me ask this.
There must just be no other.
Let's go through this for a second. Why is it an explosive thing that the ringleader of a child rape gang in Britain said that he did it because he was the supreme race, that the Pakistanis were a supreme race over the British? Why is that an explosive thing? I wonder why that is politically explosive.
Yeah, no, I can think of no other. I can think of no other reason that men would rape. I can't think of any other like more pressing reason that they would do that.
Okay, here's a good question. So there was one really, really horrific incident in the grooming gangs. It involved a young girl who was raped by a Pakistani grooming gang. She got to the police. The police turned her back, and then she was picked up off the street by another person, a completely random who was not part of the original grooming gang, and then she was raped again. Tell me, why is there that cultural problem that in the same night she could run into two separate, completely random Pakistani guys and be raped? That's fucked. That would not happen in Japan. That would just simply not happen in Japan.
Really, that specific instance would never happen in Japan.
You think that?
Are you serious? Like, what the fuck?
Yes.
I don't know if this is news to you, but like in every society, men are kind of shit. Like, yeah, men rape. Sorry, like what the fuck?
Yes, but
rape is bad.
Is there any?
I disavow.
Some societies have much higher incidence of rape. Some societies have much higher incidence of rape.
Where is your Is this the ringleader of Rochdale? This is Shabir Ahmed. That was his name, right?
I will send you the source. Let me give it to you.
Okay, as you do that, let me
report?
get through these other super chats. Okay.
It wasn't in the J report.
$5 from Psychor to say, I just tuned in, so I have no idea what's going on, but I'm just going to believe the guy with the glasses. Thanks for narrowing it down, and thanks for the $5. And then $5 from Testicle Johnson. Do you think Margaret Thatcher effectively utilized girl power by funneling money into illegal paramilitary death squads in Northern Ireland?
Are you asking that too?
I don't know. It's a question for $5.
Thatcher was a girl boss. Thatcher was a big time girl boss.
Noted. $5 and then £5 from Freshly Exhumed. Going back to the dialects, did Cockneys fail to assimilate because of rhyming slang? That's to you, Drew.
It's so different to like literally like we're talking about like slight accents versus completely new languages. So yeah, that's very different actually.
It's not a completely new language, but okay.
Well, like
it's a dialect,
all these,
and it's barely a dialect. You can understand what they're saying if you're from here.
It's basically like a new Creole type language.
Okay.
Okay.
You said that you were getting this guy's statements from the court transcripts.
I've got it, and I'm trying to send it to you. Hang on.
Is this the guy? Does this have his name? It should have his name there, right? Shabir Ahmed.
Yes. I need to make sure that Shabir Ahmed. I'm going to send you the original article was taken down by Rochdale Online. So I'm going to send you the original article that was taken down, and then I'll send you as well the book that I cited. But to be fair, it was 9 months ago, so I don't have.
So wait, this isn't from court transcripts, like you said, right?
It was reported by journalists who were in the courtroom.
Okay, Drew, we're gonna have to learn you how to Discord. You just sent that
Because
to
I
Air
recall
Knight, but-
someone calling one of the victims a white slag. I don't recall such a categorical statement as "I did this because I am racially superior," but we can see.
I put the links in the group chat for you, Lonerbox, if you want to check them out. Okay, as we check those out, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, right? And if take this
What
opportunity.
book is this from, out of interest? Sorry.
Yeah, well, I told you that because I haven't. This was at 9 months old. I don't have the book off the top of my head. I'm trying to find the original source.
Okay.
I did send.
Why
I
can't you
did
just
send
tell me?
the-
Why can't you just tell me what the book is?
I don't know the book title off the top of my head because it was
Oh.
many months ago. I'm trying to find the
Huh.
original book title. But I did send you the original Rochdale reporting that has unfortunately been taken down offline. The news article was "My only crime was to be Muslim."
10
The
pounds.
quote here that from your book is just him saying, "We are the supreme race, not these white bitches," and he points to the police
Hang on,
officers in the court.
I've got it with.
This is not him saying that he was racially motivated to commit these crimes. Like,
Okay, I've got as. Hang on, should be a.
I think it would be helpful to the stream if I put this on screen. So I will just read it real quick for the court of my chat.
Yeah,
Says,
at his
"We are the
trial, in
su-
front
let
of
me
the
read it
judge,
real
jury, and
quick.
journalist, the child
We
rapist
are the
said, "We're
supreme race."
not
Just
these white
let
bastards.
me.
You destroyed my community and our children. None of us did that. White people trained those girls to be so much more advanced in sex. He worked for Oldham Council.
Well, I'm gonna read the quote that you tweeted. Okay, says, "Quote: We are the supreme race, not these white bitches," pointing to the police officers in court. He continued, "You will not get a CBE. You will not get an MBE. You will get a DM, a destroyer of Muslims. You were born 1,000 years too late. You fucked my community. You destroyed my community and our children. None of us did that. White people trained those girls to be so much advanced in sex. They were coming without hesitation to Rochdale, Oldham, Bradford, Leeds, and Nelson, and wherever." He said the jury in Liverpool has been taking instructions from BNP leader Nick Griffin, and later pointed to Rachel Smith, who prosecuted both cases on behalf of the Crown, saying, "I curse you at night. I curse you and your family. You will understand," pointing at Judge Kokar. "I curse the juries. I curse the media. And most of you bitches, your family will get it." That's the quote.
So it sounds like it also says, first of all, he's not actually saying "I did this because." He's not like declaring a motive for a hate crime. And it's also not to mention that it also says one of those convicted addressed. It doesn't even say that this was the leader. So you lied about two things there. I don't know why you can't just quote something accurately. You did. You embellished it. You literally added in words. What are you talking about?
No, it didn't. No, this is reported in multiple news sources, and I'm sending you the news sources right now. Manchester Evening News. The original article was taken down by Rochdale Online.
What, did they quote something different besides this? Did they actually quote the ringleader?
No,
or not
the quote
one
is
of
the
those
same.
convicted.
So why?
Okay, so if the quote's the same, you think this quote demonstrates like genocidal mindset and that this is a hate motivated crime rather than a sexual opportunist motivated crime?
Well, this is what he said.
That's answer the question. He
said that he was the supreme race.
More
he said
to
that
you?
he was the supreme race.
So
he said that he was the supreme race.
So you're asking.
He said that he was the supreme race.
Yes. So you're asking this guy, why did you rape these vulnerable women? And you're taking this quote and you're choosing between he did it as a sexual opportunist or because he felt like he was in service of his racial superiority. You see, you can't even let me finish the sentence.
Here's the judge in the Liverpool trial. Clifton dismissed the gang claim that there was no racial or cultural element to their crimes. He said one of the factors leading to the abuse of their victims was the fact that they were not part of your community or religion. So there you go.
What's the context of that quote?
Even the judge said it. Even the judge said it. Even the judge said it. Even the judge said it.
I'm saying keep repeating yourself, so I'm just going to tell you what the context of that quote is because you don't know what it is. You don't know what the context of that quote is. The context of that quote is, as I mentioned earlier, from the J report and everything else. It's when they're mentioning the fact.
No, this was Clifton. This was the judge who sentenced Shabir Ahmed.
I'm talking about a report that is talking about the case. So can you let me talk?
But I'm just saying though, the judge who sentenced Shabir Ahmed, the guy.
Yes, I know the judge said that. You just don't seem to understand why he said that. The reason that was said, and the reason that's why they are categorized as sexual opportunists, is because when they were doing what they were doing, they were driving around, they were looking for girls to prey on. They did it at night in a place where most of the people were white, and where Muslim girls were, or other groups, other ethnicities, were mostly going to be indoors at that time. They were sexual opportunists. They targeted those people because, yes, you're right, they looked down on them, but also because they were there. That's why. It's not minimizing, by the way, for chat.
I've got it. I found the source. Manchester Evening News reports that it was him, Shabir Ahmed, who said that the rant in the trial. He said
we're not talking about the source. We're talking about your inability to process information. We're talking about the fact that you were so desperate to act as if this guy wouldn't have done it were it not like a white victim, because it's motivated by racial superiority, as a hate crime would be.
The judge said that. The
judge did not say that racial element is not the same. A racial element is not a hate crime. Why didn't the judge make it a hate crime?
I don't know why the judge didn't make it a hate crime. All I know is that the Manchester Evening
because maybe that would be too explosive.
No,
you could say it's got a racial element.
Well, maybe it would. I mean, Shabir Ahmed is already back on the streets, isn't he? He's not. He got. How long did he even get? Like these guys weren't necessarily given the book. I was jailed for 19 years, but he's going to be out. He's going to be out in about 8 years. Like he's already going to be out in about 8 years' time. So
is that an immigration issue or is that a criminal justice issue?
Actually, hang on. 2013, he was sentenced 19 years. So yeah, he's literally going to be out in a couple of years. So you're saying, oh, how come the judge wasn't harsh enough to make it a hate crime? Well, the judges have been pretty weak on them anyway. And I've got the quote. The Manchester Evening
pretty
News,
weak compared to what? You understand that in the UK,
this article is saying he got 77 years.
Right?
Wait, where? Sorry?
This article right here says the judge says as he jails Rochdale sex gang for 77 years.
Oh, no. So that's the cumulative total of all the people. So it's 77 years across like 20 people or 15 people, however many people were involved in the game.
Yes, Ahmed was given 22 years. And I think it was like, 2 or 3 counts of rape and then another count.
It says 19. It says in Manchester Evening News, it says 19 years. But it does also say in the same article,
he was convicted of 30 counts
that he was
of rape.
Supreme race.
What? But you said the judges were soft on this guy. What compared to what? Compared to UK standards, or?
I mean, just in general. I mean, I don't think 19 years is good enough. It should have been life in prison at the very least. I mean, in Australia, we had a grooming gang case in Sydney, and basically they got life in prison.
So that's a criminal. You understand that's a criminal justice issue, right? Not an immigration one.
Yeah, that is. I mean, yeah. But the only reason they're in the country is because of immigration. So it is an immigration issue. Of course, it is.
Okay. $10 or £10, I should say, from Average Joe to say, I'm worried as a secular Brit, the projected increase of Islam in the UK long term, much more socially conservative, less women's rights. Where Islam is the majority, it dominates the culture and society. Response to that, Lonerbox?
Britain is currently 6.5% Muslim. We were, 4% Muslim 15 years ago? Their birth rates within the country are dropping. We have pretty strict standards for immigration now. Obviously, being in the EU might have been better if you wanted migrants to be more similar to us. But you can thank Nigel Farage for that, the guy that is probably going to be prime minister next. Again, we've had immigration waves before from groups that were significantly different from us. When the Irish came to the UK, they were very different from us. They were so different that we had sectarian riots.
That's such.
They were literally perceived
as there's so much worse. It's so much more culturally dissimilar.
I'm just gonna keep talking because you're just going on an emotional rant. You don't know fucking. Even when I made that joke about sectarian violence in the UK and you acting like that's new, and I laughed, and you didn't even know why I was laughing. You clearly don't know anything about this country that you've just taken an interest in.
Yes.
No. I'm talking about the immigration waves from the fucking 1800s. Okay. Yes, Irish people were treated and perceived, and they were described as a distinct race. They were seen as a different race by the people who lived here.
Okay. I still think that Islamic migration to Britain is much more culturally dissimilar than Irish migration to Britain. So if even Irish people were seen as irredeemably foreign, it took 200 years for them to assimilate, then how do you think it's going to work with Somali Islamic extremists? It's not going to
well, it didn't take 200 years for them to assimilate. And also, I'm still yet to see the evidence that any majority of British Muslims are not assimilated. Majority of them, the overwhelming majority of them, are not committing terror attacks or
Oh, so true, dude. So true. Very assimilated community.
no, qualify
Dude,
it then instead of giggling like a little fucking fanny. Like, go on, tell me.
like because like okay, let me get up the Pew Research data into attitudes in the British Muslim community. You know, a majority of British Muslims basically think that there were no atrocities on October 7.
Do you know that quite a lot of like white leftists in the UK think that as well?
Yeah, I know, but they're unfortunately part of the country. Of course, you're always going to get white leftists, but it's
So what if we're talking about assimilation? What is that not then like assimilating to what is like already like a white leftist view in the UK?
No, not at all, because they're being motivated by Islamic extremism. They're not motivated by white leftism.
How do you know that? They're just by Islamic extremism. How do you know that? Have you seen the way that these protesters talk, even the Muslim ones? Some of them talk with Islamic language. A lot of them talk with secular language. A lot of them talk like with Soviet-style propaganda on Israel.
It's tribal. It's tribal.
Tribal is not the same as motivated by Islamic extremism. Them having opinions about October 7th.
No, this is the disaster. I'll explain to you the disaster, right? Even for more secular Muslims who are therefore more assimilated, you get the Hassan Pikers of the world who, like, they come to it from a left-wing perspective, but they still end up supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and all these insane terrorist groups. So that's a huge problem.
We're talking about Muslims in the UK who
I know, but I'm giving you an example. Like, a good example of this is Zara Sultana. I don't think she's an Islamist necessarily. She's a leftist, but she has this kind of tribal. But she has this tribal attachment to like Hamas and Hezbollah and all these Islamic extremist groups. Yeah,
and you'll notice, by the way, that the majority of them do what about that? They protest. Some of them commit hate crimes, but like the majority of them.
I got the data. Half of all British Muslims think homosexuality should be illegal. 23% want Sharia law. Beautiful. Like you think this is assimilation. It's not assimilation.
One Sharia law. What does that mean?
As like the main law of the land.
No, that's not what that means. Necessarily.
Okay. You think they just want Sharia law for ceremonial weddings and stuff like that, sure.
Well, who did they vote for, Muslims?
52% said that they want homosexuality to be illegal in Britain.
Who did they vote for, Drew? Who did they vote for?
Oh my God. 4% said that they sympathize with people who took part in suicide bombing. So what's 4% of 4 million people? That's still what? Like 100 that's more than 100,000 people who sympathize with suicide bombings. That's fucked up.
Again, what are they doing? What is any substantial number of them, like past like 1 or 2% of them doing? What do they do? What does the average Muslim in the UK do?
This is a really good point. Okay, this is a really good question. Do you agree that the 4% of British Muslims who sympathize with people who take part in suicide bombings, at least that 4% should be deported?
For having sympathies with someone, I don't think you should deport someone for thought crimes, no.
For sympathizing with suicide bombings. So you feel safe living in the country where, like, what? There's 150,000 people who believe in Islamic suicide bombings. Do you think that's good? That's assimilation.
You said sympathize. Yeah, I don't think you should deport someone for saying they have sympathies in a poll.
So 1% said that they completely sympathize. They actually full outright support it. So that's what? 40,000 people out of 4 million.
Did you go from sympathize to fully outright support it?
No, so here's the point. It said 1% said they completely.
You're just like adding. I love how you just like add adjectives.
I'm reading it out to you. I'm reading it out to you. I'm reading it out to you. 4% of British Muslims surveyed said that they sympathise with people who took part in suicide bombings. 1% said that they completely sympathise, while 3% said that they sympathise to some extent. 4%, another 4% said that they sympathise with people who committed terrorist actions as form of political protest generally. So what? That's like at least 100,000 people basically who sympathize with the action of terrorist attacks in the name of Islam. Do you think that's assimilated?
How many? I think the fact that it's 4% actually does suggest assimilation. Thank you. How many Irish people?
Beautiful, dude. Beautiful. 4%. That's still 100,000 people who believe in Islamic terrorist attacks. Do you think that 100,000 people? Surely you should at least agree with me that 100,000 component should be deported. Anyone who supports suicide attacks should be deported.
No, I'm not deporting people just because they answer questions.
Just because they support suicide. Because they. Oh my God, dude. You're actually suicidal. You actually want people to live in Britain as foreigners who support Islamic terrorist attacks. That's fucking mental.
Yeah. You think we should deport Irish people? Do you think we should consider Irish people in the UK who sympathise with the IRA?
Irish people who support that. Yes, I genuinely do. I hate the IRA.
Who sympathise with the IRA?
Yes, I actually genuinely think that.
That's a lot of deportations for opinions.
Good. Anyone who supports the IRA should be deported.
Okay, do you acknowledge that that's a fairly illiberal opinion to deport people for?
I want to have a liberal for opinions for supporting terrorist groups, dude. I want to have a liberal democratic society. Yeah, no, it's not just an opinion, because when people support terrorist groups, they're fundamentally saying that they hate the state, that they want to overthrow the constitutional order of the country.
Well, yeah, when was the last time we had a suicide bombing in the UK?
Oh, okay. Don't worry about it then. There's only been a couple.
It's almost like it's an opinion. I don't even. Yeah, it's almost like it's in their head. Yeah. How many people in the UK sympathize with fucking Nazis? How many people in the UK sympathize with the IRA? How many people in the UK?
Let's go through this. Let's go through this. This is so fucking smart. Okay, let's go through this. So Jihad al-Shami goes out and he stabs a bunch of Jews at the Jewish synagogue in Manchester. Based off those statistics that we found of the polling of the British Muslim community, and let's be real. Who's really going to answer an opinion poll with their real beliefs and tell them that they support suicide attacks? So, of course, it's an undercount. But let's just say, even if it's an undercount now.
It's probably 50%.
No, it's not 50%, but it might be as high as 10%. But even if it's like let's go on the. Let's even go with the most conservative. Let's say 1% of British Muslims agree with what Jihad al-Shami did. That's still 40,000 people. And you think it's fine for 40,000 people to live in your country who would theoretically be fine with people going out and just stabbing a bunch of Jews?
Do you think I said it was fine, or whether or not you should deport them?
Of course they should be deported. If they want to go out and stab people in the street, of course they should be deported.
And I guess this also includes deporting second-generation migrants to countries they've never been to.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if you're a second-generation migrant. If you believe in killing Jews in the streets of Britain, you need to go. You need to be deported.
Do you expect all these countries to take these deportees?
It doesn't matter if they take them.
You need two sides to take a deportation. Drop them off. Explain.
Yeah.
Airdrop them on a parachute.
No, all European states, all the America, NATO, there should basically be a NATO-like alliance where these countries that refuse to accept deported citizens, there will be massive economic pressure on them to take them back in. So if they don't take it back if they refuse to take back deported citizens, then we're going to have to consider things like, for example, suspending foreign aid, these types of things. And if there's
we're going to suspend foreign aid. So say like a Sudanese second-generation migrant writes in a poll, this is your scenario, he writes in a polling question, I've got sympathy with Second Intifada suicide bombers, right? Sympathy. Yeah. And then we deport them. And Sudan says no. And we say, okay, fuck you. We're going to take away foreign aid to the people who are starving in fucking Zamzam.
Well, there's going to be basically about 30 European. It'll be a coalition of the West.
And this is all because it makes you uncomfortable to think that we might be less white.
No, it's not about whiteness at all. It's not about whiteness at all. I just don't want people who support suicide bombings in Western
You brought up
countries.
white British, by the way. Yeah, but what I'm trying to figure out the practicalities of how you want to action this. So,
well, I'm explaining it. I'm literally explaining to you. There will be a coalition of the willing of about 30 plus Western states. And collectively, we will say that as a condition for trade, as a condition for foreign aid and all these things, you have to accept refoulement of citizens of people. And we know that Pakistan accepts citizenship by blood descent. So it doesn't matter if somebody was born in Britain. They will still have to accept them. They're citizens
that's
by
one
Pakistan.
country. To be clear, not every country does that. Bangladesh didn't let Shamima Begum back because she's never been there, right? So it's not refoulement, it's deportation.
Deportation. If you have to deport to third-party countries, that's
you're not getting. You're struggling to get coalition of the willing for any Western group right now. So let's just make it about the UK. It's just the UK with our limited power in the world doing this.
It will be a coalition of the willing. Eventually,
we're talking about British policy right now. Okay, let's say it's the UK. What if you can't? What if you're the only one country that wants to do this? Because even with Viktor Orban's Hungary, even with countries that are more right wing than us, they don't do shit like this. So you're going on the extreme. We're going over the fucking cliff now. We're so far right. You are leaning further right than someone who's just had their fucking right leg blown off, Drew. So you are alone in this.
It's not far right at all. This is a moderate option. This is a moderate option. Deporting people who want to suicide
bombing. Okay, one at a time. One at a time.
Okay, let me explain. Deporting people who agree with suicide bombing attacks in the country of Britain is the moderate solution.
Which country does this? Solution. Which country deports people because they answer
What's
the question
the extreme solution?
The extreme solution, I don't want it to happen. The extreme solution will be, if it keeps on going on this way, there's eventually going to be horrible violence and civil war, and I don't want it to happen. So I'm presenting the moderate solution, which is...
So the extreme solution is to kill them.
No, that's not what I'm supporting. I hate that. I don't want that. I'm saying that's what the extremist psychopaths want to do. I don't want that. I'm just saying let's have deportations before civil war breaks out.
Okay. Do you acknowledge that no Western country is currently doing this?
Yes, but it will be happening over the next 10 years.
I need you to engage with me like an honest human being. And
yeah, it's going to happen over the next 10 years, Lonerbox. The winds are shifting a lot. The winds are shifting a lot. Look at me. I changed a lot over the past year. There's going to be
because people were mean to you on Twitter. I need you to address me like a real human being. I need you to engage with me like a real human being, Drew, and tell me if you were just the UK and you're the first country, you're leading by example. How do you do this?
You work with all the European countries. You work with Trump.
No, they're saying no. They're not doing it. Just the UK.
No, that's a stupid theoretical because it is actually happening. It's not just.
Okay, wait. So we can't. So are you refusing to answer that?
Right wing shift.
Are you refusing to answer that because the UK couldn't do it?
I'm explaining to you. The right wing shift is not just alone to Britain. It is happening all across Europe. There will probably be a Le Pen government soon in France. There's going to be a coalition of the willing between multiple different Western countries that will agree on mass deportations of Islamic extremists. And I'm not saying
we already have right-wing countries that do that aren't doing this though. Orban's not doing this.
Yeah, because
Poland had Kaczynski's government. He's not doing it.
Well, they don't even have Islamic extremists in those countries because they don't have any Muslim migration at all, basically.
They do have a non-zero number of Muslims in those countries.
I know,
so, and they actually Hungary had quite a lot of Muslims passing through that country, and some of them stayed. So.
It's extremely small, as we both know. It's a lot.
Well, we know the thing is, we know what Hungary did, don't we? We know that when they had asylum seekers and refugees coming through Keleti station, we know that Orban actually just kind of nudged them on into Germany to the west with no vetting, and one of them carried out the Bataclan attacks. One of them was actually recruited because he was stranded because he wasn't vetted because Hungary did what you want to do, which is to just make it someone else's problem.
No, it's not Hungary's responsibility to vet them. It should have been done as soon as they entered the EU. It should have been done there should have been a European-wide border force. That's what I think should have been done.
Well, Europe can vet people, but since they didn't, they were in a country where the government had the power and the capabilities to do it, or to just make it someone else's problem, right? Because
I don't even like
because that's the reality. Because that's the reality.
Lonerbox, I don't even like Viktor Orban. I don't even like the Orban government.
What you don't understand, though, is that we have a European Union, and the European Union did not like having a bunch of Syrians coming into the continent in 2015, especially when a bunch of these governments that were liberal had to deal with this because they were going to get kicked out by right-wingers. They understood that this was a problem for them. You still got fuck all cooperation from them because that's what happened. And when you've got your deportation policy, you will also get fuck all cooperation, which is why I'm begging you to tell me how you would do this as the UK without other European countries helping you.
Because 2030 is different to the year 2015. It's just true. Because
you can predict because you can predict 10 years or 5 years into the future. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Do you think that things are going to get better? It's not going to get better. There will be
I think we're not going to have an unprecedented cooperation of European countries who are all going to sanction the shit out of their trade partners and their countries that they're often allied with, or even the Commonwealth countries, because they won't accept people getting deported for answering questions in an opinion poll, for taking like millions that would be of deportees, if we're talking about Europe and America as well. Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's reasonable to assume that's not going to happen. So I'm just trying to say, let's assume one country does it. That's a radical claim.
I think Islamic extremists are going to be deported. And you'll have to explain to me how the current situation of letting 40,000 people remain in your country who support Islamic suicide bombing attacks against you is a good idea.
I'm not letting you slither away from this very simple question. I am asking you.
Just explain how that is a...
No, stop it. You're slithering.
Hold on. Hey, both of you. Drew, stop. Drew.
Explain how to status quo.
Drew. I would like you to answer Lonerbox's question if you could.
I think it's going to happen. I think it's not going to.
What if it doesn't? Engage with the hypothetical. What if it does not? What if it does not meet the threshold, like for various reasons, no one else wants to sign on to this plan? In that case, what does UK do?
Maybe you'll have to pay maybe you'll pay a third party country to take them in, and maybe there'll be
what country are you going to pay to take deportees who have never been to the country?
Yeah, look, if
you said you've deported them because of wrong think, basically.
Not wrong think. They're people who support suicide.
Okay, Drew.
In the West.
Drew, I have a question.
And I'll explain to you.
Drew, I have a question, real quick.
Egypt is always
okay. Hold on. Lonerbox, hold on. Drew, hold on. Both of you, please. Drew. Okay, you pay a country. You say what country is going to take these immigrants and these deportees from us? Russia raises its hands and says, "We'll pay you, right? Well, you can pay us, and we're going to send them as fodder against Ukraine." Do you take that deal?
No, that's a stupid theoretical. Obviously, I'm not going to support that.
Oh, that's a stupid theoretical. But the Coalition of the Willing that's going to do an unprecedented policy
It's not.
of forcing their allies through
That's literally
sanctions
the
to
policy
take
of the- that's the
deportees
policy of the
because
Reform
they
government.
answered survey questions. Okay.
It's basically the policy of the Reform
Wait,
government.
you're the one who's being
Can you
unreasonable
explain,
here.
can you explain, Lonerbox, how it is a justifiable situation to have 40,000 Islamic extremists in the country who
I feel like I'm
support
just playing fucking world builders now at this point.
No, just explain why there are 40,000 Islamic extremists in Britain who support suicide bombing attacks against Britain. Just explain why that is.
Because they're here because we need immigrants, and some of
because they're
immigrants are bad.
Are they good immigrants?
Yes, and because some immigrants are bad, you cannot take any section of any population and have them all to be fine.
Okay.
You're always going to have between 1% and 2% of them who have problems, which seems to be all it is with Muslims in the UK.
No,
that's why you've got 40,000 out of 4 million people.
That's fucking insane.
And also because you cannot
Okay.
deport people because they answer questions you don't like on an opinion poll.
That's so funny. You actually think that it's acceptable rate for about 1 in 100 people that you bring into the country to support suicide bombing attacks against you. You think that's an acceptable rate? That's fucking unhinged. Go out to one of these post-industrial English towns and go to one of these poor English white working class towns and say, hey, listen, 1 in 100 of the new immigrants we bring to the country might be suicide bombers one day, but we can't stop that because we need immigration.
Do you think might be suicide bombers one day? Again, opinion polls. That's what we're on right now. We have not. When have we last had a suicide bombing in the UK? We haven't. Not for a long time, have we?
Oh, the last one was what? The Manchester Arena bombing where they killed 30 kids.
Yeah. And that was actually, do you know why that happened?
Atrocity. That was a massive atrocity. It was.
Yeah, and that actually happened because of a very avoidable thing. That's because we were taking that family, the Abadi family, and our government basically fucking tried to weaponize them in Libya and gave them vouched and free access across borders so that they could basically go to Libya and learn to build fucking bombs. That's not immigration policy though. That was the British government being fucking absolutely brain dead and underestimating and basically trying to weaponize extremists. Like that was what we did there. That wasn't to do with like a badly vetted immigrant or anything like that. That was like a very, very unique case for why that guy was allowed to be in the UK.
I mean, it was a badly vetted immigrant because they let the family in as refugees and then they raised 2 kids who then did suicide bombing attacks against kids in Britain. That
wasn't how they got the capabilities though. It's because we weaponized them in fucking Libya.
Yeah, but they still were in the country as Islamic extremists.
But that's not why they were able to do the attack.
They were brought to these guys were Islamic extremists. They brought them to the country. They raised their kids as Islamic extremists, and then they carried out an attack.
Why are you just leaving out the most significant, unique fact about that case? I don't know why you're doing that. Why are you retelling the story after I've just told you the main reason they were able to do what they did?
Great question. So obviously, we live in the scenario. We live in the world where those 2 young guys were able to build the bomb and carry out the attack and kill 30 people. But let's imagine the scenario where they were not technically skilled enough to create that bomb, but they still harbored enough hatred for the English people that they had in their heart the willingness to go out and kill 30 people because they hate them so much. Do you think they are still a good migrant to the country?
No, of course. We're talking about people who are taking in as who come in illegally and you can't deport them. Yeah, we're talking about asylum seekers. That's not. Why do you think I would ever make the claim that asylum seekers are supposed to be for economic benefits? You have no idea where you are in this conversation. You're completely fucking lost. You're a mouse in a maze.
You don't have to take asylum seekers.
You don't have to take asylum seekers.
Yes, you don't have to.
Yeah?
Yeah, you don't have to.
None of them. So the Ukrainians, the ones from Hong Kong?
Well, we like Ukrainians and Hong Kongers. We don't like Islamic extremists. That's the difference.
Well, we're not talking... Well, so we don't take any asylum seekers from any Muslim country then? Afghanistan? Even people who supported the Afghan government?
Maybe religious minorities from these communities who are persecuted by the government, or people who
so not Muslims.
Well, maybe some.
Yeah, Muslims, it's in Iraq or minorities.
Maybe in extremely rare circumstances where they've been extremely vetted, but you can't allow just the willy-nilly situation that has taken place where there are now people in the country who literally want to do suicide bombing attacks against the West.
Okay, I got.
So do you think?
No, go ahead, please, and then I have one more super chat, and then we're gonna get to closings. But go ahead. You had something to say, Lonerbox?
You want me to say something?
No, you were about to ask a question. I interrupted you.
I mean, you can say, if you're saying we also don't even take in asylum seekers, as far as we know from crime stats, if you care about those, asylum seekers generally commit a little bit less crime than locals.
Oh, okay, that's
and it
why.
makes
That's
sense
why there's been.
because
That's why there's been these rape cases related to the migrant hotels.
yes, because you're going to get more than zero, you fucking retard. Yes, that does
Yeah,
not mean
yeah.
that they have a higher crime rate.
But
Does
here's
that?
the-
Sorry,
here's the
wait.
thing, Lonerbox.
Does what you just said
Lonerbox,
contradict
here's the
what I
thing, though.
said?
Here's the thing.
Does what
Here's
you
the
say
thing.
contradict what I said?
No, but here's
No.
my
Oh,
answer.
that's all I need.
Well,
No,
here's my
it's
answer.
no.
Here's my answer.
It's fine.
Here's my answer. There shouldn't even be one fucking case, you fucking retard. Why would there be even one case of rape from an asylum seeker in Britain?
Okay.
It's a choice to have them in the country.
This is $10 from Goat Cheese Ree. Drew, should Australia get down to an arbitrary Greek population because bad empanada exists?
I don't want Greek communists in the country. If somebody's a Greek communist, I don't want them in Australia. I don't care if they're the same ethnicity as me. I would want Australia to keep them out of the country and deport them.
Okay, well, thank you for that answer.
I
Okay,
actually, I straight up said this. Seriously, I would literally support the Australian government deporting bad empanada, 100%. Even though we're the same ethnicity, I don't care. I don't want him in the country. He's a communist. He hates people. He's a communist who hates the state and supports Hezbollah and Hamas. I would literally support his being deported. I don't care that he's Greek like me.
We're deporting citizens as well.
okay.
Sometimes, yes. In the most extreme cases. In the most extreme cases, yes.
I can't imagine any flaws in this logic of just making like tens or hundreds of millions of people in the world stateless. Like it's just fucking amazing. Nothing bad will happen when we do that. What country do you put bad empanada in?
It
would be if you were going after people like if you're going after citizens who you think are extremists, that is going to amount to hundreds of millions of people in the world. Yes.
No. I would only do it for the most extreme cases, and I think Bad Empanada is one of the most extreme cases because he's outright openly calling for mass genocide.
Would it be tens of millions?
No, it wouldn't be tens of millions. I'm talking about literally like in Australia, it would be dozens of people. In Britain, it would be a couple thousand people. I'm not talking about millions of people. I'm talking
Really?
about
There are only dozens of Australians who support like Hamas and suicide bombings and shit like that. Really, only a few dozens.
Well,
or are you just kind of like softening your position now because you've realized how fucking mental that sounds?
No. Like it's different because Bad Empanada he's unfortunately part of the majority population of Australia. He's unfortunately part of the majority population of Australia. It's a bit different to somebody who's like a really recent migrant who's like a Somali Islamist extremist and stuff like that.
I mean, the world is full of migrants, and you seem to have a very low threshold for wanting them deported to the point that they can answer a survey question in a tribal way that supports violence. So that's like a lot of Irish people. The Irish are getting deported.
Are you retarded?
A bunch of Muslims are getting deported.
Dude, by your own, you pointed this out to me. You pointed out to the fact, you said to me that it was a great moment of assimilation that more than 95% of British Muslims rejected suicide bombing attacks. That was your answer. So I'm not talking about.
But by your,
I'm saying a small minority. I'm saying
okay.
The people
what if I asked
suicide bombing attacks?
What if I asked the British Muslims if they think October 7th was good? Would you get more than 4%?
Yes, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, you get a lot. Those protests are quite busy. Yeah, would you deport them for that?
I do think that people who support October 7th should be deported.
Okay, so you want to deport millions of people across the world. You want to make millions of people stateless.
Explain why the fuck they're in the country if they're Islamic extremists. Explain why they're in the country if they're terrorists.
Because some people are extremists. Of every population, there are some people who will be extreme. Once upon a time, it was the case with the Irish. There are still Irish people who support the IRA. They're allowed to stay in the country, though.
Hey, Lonerbox, were there Islamic terrorists in Britain in 1920?
No.
Yes, so it's a recent phenomenon. You don't have to have this in the country. It's a choice to have it in the country.
It's almost as if different ethnic groups go through different phases in history where some of them become more radical than others. That's why our problem for terrorism before Muslims was Irish people. Our next door neighbors.
Just explain. There were no Islamic terrorists in 1920 in Britain. Why is that the case?
Because there weren't any Muslims, Drew. You're very clever, yeah.
But I'm pointing out Islamic terrorism is an imported problem to the West, and I've got no problem with Muslims who assimilate, but people who support Islamic terrorism have to go.
But your threshold for you want to reduce.
Threshold is my threshold.
Wait. So why don't you think we should let in? So why shouldn't we let in? So we should let in asylum seekers then, from Muslim countries, Syrians, Eritreans, Somalis.
I mean, only if they're the most extreme vetting possible, where we absolutely know that they're not Islamic terrorists.
Yeah. What do you think we do if we find the asylum seeker is a terrorist?
They don't do any vetting right now. What the fuck are you talking about? There was a guy.
They don't do any vetting.
There was
Are
a
you
guy
kidding?
in Britain recently. There was a
You don't
guy
know
in
how
Britain.
you don't know
There
how
was-
any
there
of these
was a-
systems work. You don't
There
know
was,
how
there
these
was a
systems
guy
work.
in.
You
There
don't know
was
how
a
these
guy
systems
in.
work.
You're retarded. There's a guy in Britain recently who's literally been charged with rape. He was an asylum seeker in one of these asylum hotels. He's been charged with rape, and he was convicted of terrorism offenses in Egypt. Do you think that's an example of vetting, Lonerbox?
We have had a backlog of asylum seekers under the Tory government where a lot of people were having delayed processing and were between an initial
Don't process
screening
them then.
and
If you can't,
and
okay, if you
interviews.
can't process them, then don't let them in. If you can't process them, don't let them in. It's
But we
simple.
are processing them. That's the problem. It's not Labour's fault that the Tories weren't processing them quickly enough. But again, even if you do you understand? Do you acknowledge
Do you
now that
agree?
even
Okay,
if you
do you
do you
agree?
acknowledge that
Do you
even if you
agree?
process people, you are going to have people who slip through the cracks?
Do you
Do you acknowledge
agree
that?
that these? Okay, do you think that the 40,000 people in asylum hotels in Britain should be deported?
No.
Why? They're not legally in the country. They should be sent home.
Oh, how do you legally claim asylum in the UK?
You don't go through 30 different countries to claim asylum.
Do you not? How do you legally
asylum
claim
should be-
asylum in the UK?
I'll tell you. Asylum should be. This is how it should be done in the future. It should be limited only to countries that are right next to Britain.
Yeah. How should what law says that?
That's the law that they should make.
He wants to make the law that.
So you acknowledge that that's not the law, right?
Yeah. But
So
the current law,
are they here illegally or not?
Well,
Are they
yes,
here
they
illegally
are.
or not?
Well, they're
No,
illegal
how?
migrants.
By what law?
Because most of them are not real asylum seekers, and I'll tell you why.
No,
and I'll
that's
explain
actually
why.
false.
I'll
Most of
explain-
them are
no,
real asylum seekers.
No,
Most
I'll
of
explain
them
why.
passed
explain
their
why.
applications.
Okay,
You just
is
lied.
France-
Three-quarters of them.
No, I'm not.
Three-quarters
no, I'm not.
of them
Is France-
succeeded in
is
their
France-
applications.
Is France a safe country?
But that's not the law. Three-quarters of them succeed
Why
their
are
applications.
Why? Because the British asylum system is too weak right now. It doesn't even properly vet people at all.
Okay,
That's why.
so
they're
you
accepting
acknowledge.
people.
Okay, so you acknowledge that it's not
people
illegal.
People who are in France are not at real immediate risk. There's literally no reason for somebody. Actually, this is a good question.
Uh-huh.
Do you think there's any justifiable reason for somebody to travel from France to Britain for asylum seeking?
Yes.
Why? France
But
is a
just
safe
don't,
country.
hang on. You're dodging one question though. First of all, we can talk about safe countries if you want, but I need you to acknowledge you're not saying it's illegal. Then you're saying it is legal right now, but you'd like it not to be. If you want to claim asylum in the UK, there are two ways you can do it. One is you can arrive through a temporary visa and claim when you're here, but you can also just be in the country, and it doesn't matter how you got here. You can come in on a boat, you can swim over, you can fall out of a fucking plane. You have to be in the country to claim asylum. It's not illegal migration. It's not.
Okay.
It's asylum seeking.
The dinghies. Do you think the dinghies are justified then?
It's legal asylum seeking. Yes.
It's not legal. That's why the British state is
It is
trying
legal.
to send people
Why do you
back.
think
It's
they
not legal.
why do you think they get granted asylum if it's illegal?
Yeah, well, maybe the current system's retarded, but realistically, it should not be happening.
No, the reason we have. Do you know? Can you think for 1 second? Okay, just stop. Okay, breathe. I need you to think. Why would any country, because actually most countries do this, the Refugee Convention does this. Why do you think a country would say that sometimes if you want to...
Britain should leave the Refugee Convention.
I'm just trying to ask you a question, Drew. Calm down. I'm trying to ask you, why, can you just think of one reason why the Refugee Convention and most of the world would agree that if you want to claim asylum, sometimes you have to be in the country to do it. And it might not be through a legal route to initially get here.
Literally just change. You can easily change Britain's domestic laws. It's very easy.
No, I'm asking you why. You said why is it? You said you don't. Do you think that law's retarded? I'm asking you. Please think of a good reason for it. I just want to see if you can use your imagination.
Yes,
why?
Yes, because Britain is an island.
No, not because Britain is an island. Why would
Britain's an island.
refugees? Why do you think refugees? I'm maybe just giving it away now. Why do you think refugees, people who are fleeing war, persecution, why do you think they might be in a position where they can't just get a temporary visa and fly over?
The EUCHR and the Refugee Convention were built in a world where people were where that was designed for this. It was built right after World War II, and it was designed for people going from one country that was in conflict to immediate safe haven. There's nothing in the Refugee Convention that says that somebody should be allowed to country shop and go through 50 different countries until they get to Britain and say, this is where I'm seeking asylum. If they were
You just completely dodged my question. If you want to get to safe countries, we can, but I'm trying to get you to this question. Why do you think the Refugee Convention and most of these countries that take in refugees that are party to it would agree that sometimes you cannot be expected to just fly over in a temporary visa? Sometimes you might come in through an irregular channel. Yes.
Because,
Why? Why?
Because you're because
Yes.
you are.
Thank you. Got it. Mashallah, Habibi. Okay. So your next question is safe third countries. Okay. Your next question is about first safe
Here's
country.
the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. It can be so easily abused by just young men who are economic minds, and that is what is happening. Unfortunately, that is what is happening.
But no, it's not, because they're vetted and most of them succeed in their applications.
Yeah, but dude, the current British vetting system is so weak that you're
What's
literally
the vetting
allowing.
system? Can you describe the vetting system to me?
The vetting system is that people like Jihad al-Shami's father can come into the country and then raise a son who becomes a terrorist while supporting Hamas and supporting October 7.
How long ago did this guy come into the country? You realize that our asylum system
He came
has
as a
been
refugee.
modified.
He came as a refugee.
Do you realize how long ago?
He came as a refugee. And also...
How long ago?
I'm not sure, mate. 15, 20 years ago.
Oh, so before we made a bunch of changes to our asylum system and increased vetting. 50, 20 years ago, when we were just coming to terms with fucking terrorism and shit. Yeah.
The increased vetting that results in a guy who's literally been convicted in Egypt of terrorism offenses to be able to go to stay in an asylum-seeking hotel in Britain and then go out and rape somebody and then be charged for that. What great vetting
do you think there is, out of 40,000 people, most of whom commit less crime than locals? Yes. We have hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers in the UK. You understand that they commit less crime on average than locals.
Okay,
You understand that there's no such thing as a perfect vetting system. Drew, is there such a thing as a perfect... Is there such a thing?
That's a point in my favor. That's a point in my favor. The fact that there is no such thing as a perfect vetting system means that you just gotta have to shut down this stuff. You just have to shut down this.
Okay, you want to shut down this stuff and do what with them? So we see a small boat in the sea. What do we do to it?
Send it home. Return it back to the shore, which is what Australia did. We have boat turnbacks. I'm not talking about shooting
boat
them.
Turnbacks.
Boat turnbacks. That's what Australia did. It worked. Just
send them back. How do you know it worked in Australia?
We did it for 15 years in Australia, and we literally still tug the boats back to Indonesia.
And are you also? I'm guessing you're also aware that part of that Operation Sovereign Borders policy is that people who work for Operation Sovereign Borders, it is illegal for them to disclose information about their work to anyone, even to Parliament, to the government. Do you also recognize that despite them saying that their policy resulted in zero border crossings, it didn't, did it? They stopped counting the boats. They didn't stop the boats. They stopped counting the boats. You still had people in Cocos Keeling. You still had people in Saibai. You still had people in North Queensland. You had people who actually made it round the routes into Australia. Yes, this is true. I know this because someone from Operation Sovereign Borders admitted it, didn't he?
No, there's basically only been like one boat that's even made Australia in the past.
That's not true. That's not true at all. Hang on. Where is it? Where's the guy? It was the guy who spoke to Kim Carr.
Kim Carr's a communist, by the way.
It was Michael Outram. Okay, tangent. It was
Kim Carr's like literally communist.
It was the guy who was talking to Kim Carr. Pay attention. It was Michael Outram. Michael Outram, the acting commissioner of Border Force, guy who was on Operation Sovereign Borders. We get illegal arrivals in Australia at the border all the time and have done for many years. It's because their mandate. No, he's talking about arrivals in Australia, and those people go into Australia and get processed in Australia.
No. That's
Operation Sovereign Borders is mandate. You're just okay. I know the truth hurts. It's embarrassing that I know your country better than you do.
No, that's not even true.
Operation Sovereign Borders didn't cover everywhere.
Tell me the exact number. Tell me the exact number of boats that have arrived in Australia in the last year.
We don't know the number because Operation Sovereign Borders won't disclose it.
There's literally been none. No,
it's because they won't disclose it.
No, that's not true. That's literally a lie.
I'm just reading it right now. Here, I'll send it to you. This is from the transcript from the government.
If it was happening,
this is from government transcript. This is from government transcript. I know it's obvious.
I know this because I'm Australian. I know this because I'm Australian. Dude, I know this.
Oh, you're watching all the borders at the beach. What a fucking stupid thing to say. What an insanely fucking answer.
You're actually fucking retarded. What I was going to say to you is this. Because I'm Australian and I follow the news in Australia, I know for sure that the only time that there's been a significant boat that's gotten through is basically one time in the past 3-4 years.
Okay, quick question. Very simple question. Does Operation Sovereign Borders cover the entire border of Australia?
It covers basically the maritime area.
The answer is no. No, it doesn't actually. It's not the entire maritime area. Also, and this is Michael Outram saying it as well.
Dude, also, here's another point. Your nitpicking about Australian Operation Sovereign Borders is so retarded because Australia has to basically cover so much more water mass, whereas you're literally just basically dealing with Calais. It's so much easier. The English Channel is like 30 kilometers across at Calais. It's so much easier to turn the boats back.
Are you just trying to pivot now because you realize that you got caught out being completely fucking wrong about Operation Sovereign Borders?
No, I haven't because boats are not coming to Australia
just control
right
F all the time.
When was the last time
Outram.
a boat made it to Australia?
Okay, so Michael Altram says, no, Senator, no. We get illegal arrivals in Australia at the border all the time and have done for many years, as you know. The reason Operation Sovereign Borders was set up was not to deal with Papua New Guinea. As I articulated, it has to do with people arriving on the high seas, primarily out of Indonesia and Sri Lanka.
I knew that already. What's your point about this? I know that it's...
You said no boats got into Australia.
I'm
not fucking... I don't have a short memory. Don't gaslight me, Drew. Come on. Wick, you heard that. You heard them say no crossings. None. Zero.
No. Yeah. Maybe like a very small trickle. But what we're talking about is...
What? An Operation Sovereign Borders guy saying all the time.
Okay, let me explain to you, right? Oh, wait, it says
there was never that many anyway. There was, and also, I'm sure you're aware.
Okay, at the height, there were tens of thousands of people arriving. At the height, there was
about 20,000, yeah. About 20-something thousand.
Yes.
You're also...
And the current arrivals are zero. The current arrivals are zero.
You're also... Well, it's recorded arrivals is zero. They arrive all the time, according to Michael Outram. Yeah.
No, Michael Outram, no.
Not to mention, that stop the boats didn't actually stop the asylum seeking, did it? Because plane arrivals increased.
The last time a boat made landfall in Australia, it was literally front page news for the whole week. Why would I take your
$5 just real quick because I think this is important.
Retard, I'm literally Australian. The last time a boat made landfall in Australia, it was front page news for a full week.
Okay, you didn't even know that. But you didn't even know that OSB.
The Murdoch, dude,
didn't bring it down to zero.
The Murdoch media is obsessed with the boats. Do you think if the boats were arriving, they would not be trying to embarrass the Labor government by constantly pointing that out?
$5.
Because saying that Operation Sovereign Borders makes it illegal to discuss figures or any facts about the operations.
This is important to the discussion at hand.
This is such a cope. This is such a massive cope, and I know it's a cope because, let me explain. The last time a boat made landfall in Australia, it was front page news, regardless of the fact that Operation Sovereign Borders, you can't talk about it in the press. It was front page news. Everyone saw it. I saw the visuals of the boat that had made it to Australia. It was front page news in Australia for fucking 5 days.
Do you ever think it happens without...
I would know if it was happening in Australia.
$5 from General Grievous to say, Drew, I'm part Jewish, and I want you to think of the cruel, retarded irony of turning refugees and boats around. This happened in the 30s. They were murdered.
No, it's not. No, it's so different. No, it's not. It's not.
Why is it so different?
Okay, I'll explain to you. Because refugees at Calais are safe in France. They're not going to be murdered in France. It's not like the Holocaust.
So it's about safety. So which safe country can an Afghan refugee or people going to Australia? What refugee safe country can they go to before Australia?
The first safe country that they get to, they should stay in. They're safe.
Yeah, but that's why I'm asking you. Indonesia. Is Indonesia party to the Refugee Convention?
Indonesia, they're safe in Indonesia. I don't
Wait, answer that question. Is Indonesia party to the Refugee Convention?
Indonesia, they're safe in Indonesia.
It's not a safe country. They go into detention centers and they rot and they get tortured. It's not a safe country for asylum seekers. There's actually between the countries that they come from and Australia. That's why. Which one is a refugee safe country?
Well, they shouldn't be coming to Australia. The first country that is.
You don't care. So you don't care about them going to a safe country. You just want them out of your country. Just say that. Just say you were happy to let them fucking rot in Indonesian detention centers where they have no future, no asylum, no processing, nothing, fucking subject to all kinds of criminal gangs, smugglers, human traffickers. You are fine with that so long as they don't come to Australia.
A Muslim
20,000 a year.
A Muslim
Kill yourself,
refugee.
you fucking prick. No. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Oh, you're fucking retarded. You're actually mentally ill. It's not my responsibility.
I don't know why you're lying to...
It's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility in Australia to take in random... It's not my responsibility in Australia to randomly take in refugees from the entire world.
Good. Just say that. Yeah, then don't pretend to care about them going to a safe country.
Well, if they're... I want them to go to a safe country. Good luck.
No, you don't. Because the closest safe country for those ones... The closest safe country from Rohingya is Australia. That's the closest safe country.
No, that's actually not true. China's a party to the refugee convention. They can
Hold
go to
on,
China.
a Uyghur that
Rohingya
feels
Muslims can go to
persecuted in
China.
China and is trying to flee the
Well,
Uyghur
it's
genocide.
true, though.
Where should
It's
they
true, though.
go?
Like you said that Australia is the
Hold
closest
on,
country. to the refugee convention. Cambodia is a country with it.
Answer my question. A Uyghur Muslim fleeing the genocide in China, should they go?
No, I would let
to
Uyghur
Australia?
Muslims. I would let Uyghur Muslims in because I like them.
Yeah, because they're enemies of the people you don't like. That's why.
Yeah, that's literally
But not
true.
Rohingya Muslims
Well,
who
we
are
can let
being
I-
murdered by China, which arms Myanmar.
we
By
can
Myanmar, which
take in
arms
some-
China.
we can take in some limited numbers of Rohingya Muslims. And we actually have taken in tens of thousands of Rohingya Muslims in Australia. That's
Yeah, but
fine.
you support blocking them. You
I don't
support turning their
support-
boats back and tugging them over to Indonesia and potentially drowning them as
well,
well, because you do acknowledge that people have drowned in these operations, right?
No,
You do acknowledge
there's-
that, right?
No,
That in
more people-
pushbacks,
more
some people
no,
fall over
no,
and drown,
no,
right? You
no,
acknowledge that.
More people drowned more people drowned just on the journey to Australia than with regards to the pushbacks. More people drowned as a result of making the dangerous journey in the first place. So the actual
But they're
best
going
way
to make they're going to make the journey
No,
anyway.
no,
That's
but-
why
no,
Operation
but
Sovereign
people
Borders
smugglers-
exists. It exists to pull people back who are making the journey.
People smugglers are trying to human traffic. The people smugglers must not be allowed to do that. They're putting people's lives at risk by putting them on these extremely dangerous boats. And you think that it's fine to just allow these people to keep on coming and create the incentive for the
they're
boats
going
to keep on continuing.
The incentive is
You
that
won't
the
You're creating the
incentive.
incentive. You're creating
The
the incentive.
incentive. The
You're creating the
incentive.
incentive.
No.
You're creating the incentive by
Well done.
you are
Yes.
creating the incentive.
Yes. Well done. You realize that when I talk, it's not just to repeat the same thing 3 or 4 times in a row. I don't know why you're wasting so much fucking space to try and do that.
You don't want me
the
to have
other
You
incentive.
don't want me
Hold
to have
on.
control
I'm
over
sorry,
my
Hold
but-
on.
interruption there?
Hold on. Loner, finish your point, and then Drew can respond uninterrupted. Go ahead.
The actual incentive is that it's either risk your life on a boat or it's stay in Indonesia and also risk your life and being a fucking
Indonesia is safe.
kept in a
Indonesia
dungeon.
is fine. Indonesia
not
is
safe.
fine. It is
It's
much
fine.
it is okay. An Afghan refugee is much safer in Indonesia than they are in Afghanistan. 100%.
in an Indonesian detention center.
No, not even
So
necessarily.
so they should, to you would rather they stayed in Indonesian detention centers.
Tell Indonesia to reform their policy. Then I encourage Indonesia to take in
Yeah.
more refugees.
So
They're
not your
They're the
problem.
largest Muslim. They're the largest Muslim majority country on earth. They should take in more Muslim refugees. What's the
Yeah, so
problem?
not your problem,
Why-
right?
It's not Australia's problem. Ask Indonesia to reform their policy. It's not my problem.
And if they don't, just leave them there. Leave them to rot.
It's not my responsibility to take in the entire population.
Why are you
of-
saying no? Why can't you own a position? You literally would rather these people get fucking tortured in Indonesian detention centers than come to Australia.
No, dude,
You'd rather that.
that's
You prefer that.
mental. You're mental. You see Indonesia torturing people, and your idea is not to tell Indonesia to reform that policy. Your policy is instead to go, no, Australia, take them in. No, tell Indonesia to reform their policy. They're the
So in
largest
the
Muslim
time,
country on earth.
so between the
Indonesia
time
should
it
take
takes,
in more Muslim refugees.
so between
Indonesia should take in more Muslim refugees.
between the time it takes to actually get Indonesia to reform, do they come to Australia or not?
No, you should put all your
So
pressure.
you'd
on
rather they
Indonesia.
get tortured? Thank you. Yes.
No,
I don't know why you can't own that.
No,
I don't know why you can't own that.
No, Indonesia is if Indonesia carries out atrocities, that's Indonesia's moral responsibility.
Yes,
it's not
that's what I'm
Australia's
saying.
moral
So yes, that's what
responsibility.
I'm saying. That's why. But you would rather they did that than them come to Australia. Those are your two choices.
No, that's
Wait,
not
hold on.
No,
I have a
no,
question for
no.
you, Drew, just real quick.
That's not
So,
the
There's
truth.
not
so
a
in
third option.
Indonesia, hold on, stop, all of you,
No,
all of you.
he's saying that I should
All of-
dissolve the
all of
border
you,
of
please.
Australia because Indonesia has bad policies. His idea
Okay,
is that we should
I
dissolve
understand.
the entire border security of Australia.
Isn't that the
because
whole
Hold on,
point
just
of
real quick,
refugees,
Lonerbox,
is
please,
that they
please.
flee countries that
An
can't take care of them?
Indonesian, a refugee, arrives at your shores and arrives at your door, right? And if you don't let them in, they're going to be sent to these Indonesian torture prisons. Do you have a moral responsibility to let them in?
That is not at all the actual moral responsibility. That is not actually a realistic moral scenario. That's not true. That is not what is happening.
A Jewish person's
That
is
fleeing
what's
the
happening.
Nazis, okay, and they arrive at your door. Do you have a moral
Indonesia is not
responsibility
carrying
to
out
let
a
them in?
Holocaust. Indonesia is not carrying out a Holocaust, dude. Indonesia is not the Holocaust. Indonesia is not Nazi Germany. It is the largest Muslim majority country on earth, and it is a democracy. Tell Indonesia to change their policies.
Well, again,
But until they do change their policy, would you
Until they
rather
do,
they
we
stayed
should
in
have
those
open
detention
borders.
centers?
No, until your idea is that until Indonesia reforms its policies, that Australia should have open borders. No, that is not acceptable.
No, Australia should have vetting. Do you acknowledge that, by the way, almost over 80% of small boat arrivals from Australia succeeded in their asylum applications? They were legitimate. Of course they were. They came from Syria and Iran and Afghanistan and Iraq and Yemen. And of course they had successful applications. They were legitimate refugees, every single one of them.
It's still 20% failed. 20% were just literally random economic blokes.
It was like
Economic
12% that failed, and they got deported.
It's like yeah, good. I hope they are deported. If you're not,
Why do you care? Why was that your instinct to? What about the other ones? Is it bad that they stayed?
No, look, if they followed if they did end up getting vetted and they were not a threat to anybody, then I'm okay with them being here. But
these are the people that you want to push back on the boats.
Well, we have to have a policy that is strict so that more people don't come into the future.
So you don't want the people on small boats who succeeded in application. You'd rather they had not made it.
No, well, the people that already made it, then we have to process them, but we want to try to stop them from coming in the future. And
but it would be better. It'd be better if they hadn't made it. It'd be better if they'd got fucked in Yemen, right, or stayed in Iraq, or stayed in Afghanistan. Yeah.
Well, it would be better if random foreigners who, if they found safe asylum in another country, yes, it would.
Obviously, it would be better if they found safe asylum in another country, but obviously they didn't. That's why they end up in Australia.
They could go to Cambodia. Cambodia is a signatory to the UN Convention. They should have done that.
Cambodia for what? Rohingya Muslims.
Yeah, it's closer.
It's like saying that you might as well be saying that they could take Muslims are fine going to China because they're part of the Refugee Convention.
But Cambodia is a party to the Refugee Convention and it's right next to Myanmar, so they could go to.
Do you think Rohingya Muslims can't flee China because China's party to the Refugee Convention? Like, why would they need to flee?
I'm offering Cambodia as a safe asylum, dude. It's right next to Myanmar.
Why do you think they don't stay in Cambodia?
They want to come to Australia because it's a wealthier country than Cambodia.
Are you sure?
A lot of the cases, yes.
You think of any other reasons?
Yeah, Australia's a more attractive country than Cambodia. I'm aware of that fact.
That's not the only reason, okay? Like, Cambodia is also quite rough on Rohingya Muslims, but whatever.
Okay.
I think we've. It is late.
Papua New Guinea in the offshore processing centers.
Well, Papua New Guinea is party to the convention, so they could go to Papua New Guinea potentially.
Have you seen how people were treated in Papua New Guinea from the offshore processing? Australia paid for that, by the way.
It's regrettable.
Because Australia is basically paying these countries to take the load off them, basically. That's actually a problem as well. Is like when you are trying to send someone who's coming to your border away, you kind of need the consent of the other country to do it. That's why you said you care about people smugglers. Well, we know that Operation Sovereign Borders people, because of whistleblowers, have actually been paying smugglers just to take people back, because it's otherwise they might just stay in the middle of the sea and drown. We know that when Australia was trying to offshore process people in Nauru and Manus Island, we know that when people did, when we know that when Australia, I'm not finished. We know that when Australia was trying to process people in Nauru and Manus Island, they had to pay for that to happen. It actually cost them millions of dollars per person to keep them there. They could have, it was more expensive than putting them in a fucking 5-star hotel in Australia. And what was the result of that again? Where are most of those asylum seekers now? Oh, they had to get medically evacuated to Australia. They're in Australia right now.
It's regrettable.
It was a fucking failure.
Look, at the end of the day, it did stop overall the boats though, because the arrival.
And that's what matters. Yeah, that's what matters. Keep them out. Yeah, I know. I understand.
Well, the good thing is that there are no large-scale migrant movements through offshore boats. That's a good thing. Australia was able to stop that. I'm happy that they did.
Even though the number was completely compensated by the number of plane arrivals and asylum claims.
Yeah, but
turns out that when people are fleeing, they'll find a way. I'm sorry, like it's just what happens.
But here's the thing, Lonerbox. I don't want the plane arrivals either. So you're trying to be like, oh, you're a hypocrite. Like,
yeah, but how do you stop someone coming on a temporary visa and then saying I can't leave? Sorry,
deport people on temporary visas.
Deport people to countries they're fleeing.
It's been about 3 hours.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, Lonerbox. A lot of the time, they're just economic migrants who are lying about being refugees.
No, majority of them, like you said, like you acknowledged earlier, you admitted, majority of them succeed in their applications. They were successful because they were valid refugees.
Here's what we're going to do.
No, couldn't possibly.
I'm going to read these last 2 super chats, and we're going to get closing statements, and then we're going to go because I'm tired, and it's been 3 hours past my bedtime. Okay? And, yeah, that's what we're going to do. So real quick. $5 from Super Platano Man. I can't believe Drew went from supporting Uyghurs in China. I wonder how those Muslims feel about him becoming Tommy Robinson. And then 10
I'm not Tommy
pounds
Robinson.
from Freshly Exhumed to say, here in Britain, we have assimilated many different cultures: Chinese, Indian, Irish, Polish, African, Caribbean, just to name a few. I see no reason why we can't do it again. Thank you for the 10 pounds. And with that, if you've enjoyed the show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to give closing thoughts to each of these people. What we got coming up, tomorrow I'm going to do call-ins. So if you have a problem with anything I've said, just call in and we'll talk about it. On Thursday, we're going to have a discussion on which party has a better solution to young men's issues, Republicans or Democrats. Should be a fun debate. And on Friday, we're going to be talking about the Youth Republican group chat leaks. We're going to have Lactoid. We're going to have a few others on to discuss whether or not those matter, and we should be concerned. Okay, with that said, I'm going to give first to Lonerbox. I'm going to let Drew have the last word. So remember, I got links to both these people in the YouTube description. Please click on these links. They've been kind enough to give us content today, so be kind enough to follow them. Lonerbox, closing thoughts, and then Drew.
Usually when I have these immigration debates, I expect to get into the kind of standard, there's a concern there. Obviously, some of these concerns are legitimate, like demographic change does have impacts. Like it does cause some issues. It causes some challenges for nations, especially when we've had net migration like we had in the unprecedented numbers of the last 2 years. Usually these kind of debates go in a way of like reassuring people that you can't just come to the UK and claim benefits or get a council house. For the work salaries now,
that is literally what's happening.
No, it's not. You just don't understand how time works. I'm going to finish my statement. The salary requirement now for the UK is something like 40k for a work visa. It's which is quite high for the UK. Not to mention that care worker visas and student visas, they used to allow you to bring dependents. They don't anymore. And all of these visas basically mean you have to pay an NHS surcharge, so you have to fund the NHS, even though you're young and you're basically never going to use it. Yeah, we have a pretty robust immigration system. I think Keir Starmer has actually gone quite. He's given the right, like basically every sensible thing they would ask for. He's made it so that you need to earn quite a lot. You need to have a very high education standard, like up to a degree level, even for a non-degree job. They've closed a lot of these like vacancy jobs. You can no longer earn anything below the going rate for any job that you're in, even if there's a shortage. Our asylum process is being tightened up to the point that vetting has been expanded. We've got deals with France that's already done more and helped with more removals than was ever achieved from the Rwanda gimmick. So normally I'm expecting things like this, reassuring people that crime rates from foreigners aren't actually as high as people think they are, or reassuring people that the number of illegal crossings is actually far lower. It's like only 4% of all immigration. The rest of it is completely legal, and they have to cross through, tick a bunch of boxes, pay a bunch of fees, answer a bunch of questions, give a bunch of reassurances. I did not expect a debate on whether or not we can just deport people en masse because they answer polling questions about, I thought the second intifada was like slightly based. That's kind of insane. I can't imagine the problem that we would have if we just decided to make what would easily be millions of people stateless and just leave them wandering the earth looking for something to do. Typically, statelessness is bad. Bin Laden was made stateless. Stateless refugee camps, people in Syria and in the Rohingya camps in Bangladesh. By the way, most of these countries, these are the countries that take most of the refugees. Most of the refugees in the world are in places like Iran, Bangladesh. They're in Jordan, like Turkey. They're in neighboring countries. The people who come to Europe and Australia are a tiny minority of the world's refugees. As the wealthy countries of the world, as the countries that at one point in time made a lot of our wealth off of exploiting the rest of the planet, I think it is a fairly modest humanitarian thing that we.
You hate white people.
No, it's a modest humanitarian thing because the alternative is that if you just abandon these people, which is exactly what you're proposing, then you have stateless people everywhere. Stateless people are not good. Stateless people are dangerous. Stateless people are the easiest people in the world to recruit and radicalize for missions, etc. ISIS thrived off of people who were made stateless by the Syrian civil war and by the conflicts in Afghanistan and around the Middle East. Like those groups love. They love
closing statements. You gotta let them go. You will get your own closing statement. I promise you.
to answer the question about safe first country, the reason that exists nowhere in the Refugee Convention, and actually the reason the Refugee Convention says, it quite clearly acknowledges that there should be international cooperation on the issue of burden sharing, is because if you just allow the neighboring country to take in and force them to take in all the asylum seekers from whatever crisis or war is happening next door, then you are actually imposing massive, arbitrary, disproportionate burdens on single countries. The only way that we can deal with the issue of global refugees is by sharing is by taking a share of the burden, because otherwise you have issues of massive buildup of stateless people who are ripe for radicalization, who are ripe for militarization, and generally, just as a humanitarian, it's a good thing to do. That's why Drew is so desperately uncomfortable to admit that he would rather an Rohingya Muslim go into an Indonesian detention center. Fox Live, YouTube.
Pavlo, closing thoughts, and where can people find you?
Lonerbox has an extremely evil and mentally ill, insane ideology. He basically thinks that all nations on the planet, particularly Western nations, though, because they have the burden of colonialism and they must shoulder the burden of historical colonialism. He thinks that basically every Western nation should essentially dissolve itself because of the burden of colonialism. He thinks that it's actually fine and normal to have 40,000 Islamic extremists in Britain who answer polling questions telling them that they actually fully support suicide bombing attacks. When I said that I think people who outright support suicide bombing attacks should be deported, he accused me of being an extremist, not the people who actually want suicide bombing attacks and want to kill us all. According to Lonerbox, there would basically be a mass dissolution of the British nation, and he's fine essentially with, I don't know, Islamic extremists just continuing to grow in strength and organize in Britain with essentially no consequences. And he's just apparently fine with all these people living in Britain as foreigners supporting suicide bombing attacks and Islamic extremist terrorist attacks. It literally does not make any sense. Nothing I've said at all has been extremist. All I've said is that people who outright support open violence against the state, open violence against democracy, the mass killing of religious minorities like Jews, those people should be deported. I'm not talking about ordinary Muslims. I'm talking about outright Islamic extremists, people who literally say that they want suicide bombing attacks and Islamic extremist attacks. There's nothing Tommy Robinson about that. There's nothing extreme right about that. Mine is the moderate position, because I'm just simply saying that a moderate goal of the British state should be removing foreign nationals from the country who support suicide bombing attacks and mass murder based on Islamic sectarianism. And I think it's a very normal thing to argue. I think it's very normal to say that it's bad to import Islamic extremist terrorists into your country.
Where can people find you if they want to find you?
I know that the audience will be 99% against me, so no one's going to go to follow me, but it's just at Drew Pavlin.
You know what? It's okay. 99% of the audience is against me too. Okay? Like, no one hates...
Fine. I will
Wait,
literally
wait,
speak.
wait.
Even if I'm the only person in the world with this position, I believe that I am the common sense, normal, moderate person. I think the extreme position is to import people who literally support ISIS into Britain. For some reason, like Lonerbox thinks that's a normal
Common
policy.
sense if you're the only person in the world having the opinion.
Well, if the entire world is filled with mentally retarded leftists, then what can you do?
What can you do? Well, thank you both for coming. I do appreciate it. It's been a spirited one. So I do appreciate it, gang. Once again,
Lonerbox is literally mentally insane. Lonerbox is literally mentally insane. His ultimate position is essentially the genocide of the West.
okay. Lonerbox, the Arab, the genocider of the West, and
I didn't say
Drew
he's Arab.
Pavlo.
Me and him basically have the same ethnic group. I'm Cypriot. He's Lebanese. We're basically
It's a reference to the Ethan Klein lawsuit, but where they refer to him as the Arab streamer. But anyway, I will talk to you guys later. I'll see you guys
I
tomorrow.
thought he was Israeli. I didn't.
I love you all. And I'll talk to you guys then. Peace out, Girl Scouts.